All right, board members, it's 6 o'clock, and so we're ready to begin our meeting. I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Education into order for June 7th, 2021. There is a quorum. All of our board members are here, as well as our executive team. And so we'll begin tonight's meeting with an invocation led by Ms. Anderson.
Good evening, everyone. Shall we stand, please, for this invocation? And all eyes closed and head bowed, I just want to say thank you, Heavenly Father, for another day's journey. Heavenly Father, we thank you this evening as you have brought the Board of Education members, team, family together again to seek to do your will, Lord. Lord, we're here this evening saying thank you. Thank you, Lord, for just giving us the guidance, giving us the know-how, that we will do things that is pleasing in your sight, that's pleasing for the Granville County Public School System, but most of all, Lord, pleasing for the students of the Granville County Public School System. Be with us, Heavenly Father. Touch us. Be with us as we take care of the business of the Granville County Public School System and talk to each of us silently, individually, as we know that we're doing what's right for our school system. Lord, we just thank and praise your holy name, and thank you again for being with us as we carry out your business and our business in support of the Granville County School System. Thank you, Heavenly Father. These things I ask in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Peace, will you lead us for our pledge?
All right, stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, board members, before you on the agenda tonight, our first order of business is to approve minutes. There in your package, you had minutes from May 3rd, 2021. What would be the pleasure of the board for those minutes?
I make a motion that the board approve the minutes as so described. Amen.
All right, Ms. Anderson's made a motion that we approve the minutes as presented. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second by Ms. Williams. Is there any further discussion or corrections? All right, seeing none, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, the motion carries. Next is 3.01, announcements or changes to our agenda. Madam Superintendent, do you have changes?
Yes, Mr. Chair. There were some additional items added to the agenda this evening. We will be switching 5.04 with 5.06. Our special district personnel will be the final celebration point this evening. Special district personnel presentation will be the last item in that category this evening.
All right, thank you, Madam Superintendent. Board members, do you have any adjustments to the agenda? All right, seeing none, it's been presented that we adjust the agenda. All those, may I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. We have a motion by Mr. Peace and a second by Dr. McKnight. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion carries. Board members, you've been presented with a couple items on the consent agenda: child nutrition bids, major roof replacements at Cradle and West Oxford. Those have been presented to you as consent items. What would be the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion by Dr. Houlihan to approve the items as presented. Do we have a second? We have a second by Dr. McKnight. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, the motion carries. All right, tonight we are at a special part of the meeting for our special recognitions. And so, Dr. McLean, I turn it over to you.
This is such an exciting night, Mr. Chair and members of our Board of Education and viewing audience. We have several points of celebration this evening as we close out our school year. I'm delighted to turn it over to Dr. Winborn this evening. Up first, we have some exciting news about our South Granville High School softball team. Dr. Winborn.
Thank you, Dr. McLean. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So we know about our Viking softball team, right? Their absolute commitment to excellence. This year, they found themselves yet again in that familiar position in the state championship. They played 2 highly competitive games and just fell short, but are this year's state runners-up. The Vikings, coached by Jack Day, have won numerous state championships or runners-up for many of the past few years. And you can see from the photograph there behind you, board members, that stack of trophies there on the right is evidence of their excellence. It speaks volumes to the girls that play the game and the quality softball program built over the years. One might call it a dynasty, but Granville County Public Schools calls them champions. So congratulations to our Lady Vikings for another great season. And just so you know, they are joining virtually this evening. They are tuning in. I believe that they are going to get a lot of love this evening as well from other groups. So congratulations to them.
Thank you, Dr. Winborn. Dr. McLean, do you have anything to add to that?
We're just proud. As a superintendent, we compete a little with the championship rings we purchased to get, and I was able to purchase one because of the championship these ladies received one year. So I'm excited that I have a championship ring because of the performance of these young ladies. Really proud. All right.
Mr. Chair, could I ask a quick question?
Yes, sir.
What have you done down there to make this team win year after year after year? It's got to be your coaching or something.
Well, they just want to make the board chairman happy.
That makes sense. All right.
I'm slightly biased. Slightly. All right, next, I believe, Mr. Perry and, I'm sorry, I've lost my place now. Mr. Perry and Mr. Peace, I believe, have a presentation for student recognition.
That's right.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we are delighted to present our Granville County Public Schools Prospective Teacher Scholarship recipient, Mr. Davon Davis. And Davon is a graduate of Granville Early College. He'll be attending Elon University, majoring in science education with a minor in social studies. And Davon has been very active in school-related activities, serving as SGA, Honor Society, Science Club, marching band, and concert band, as well as being involved in civic activities, all while maintaining an excellent academic record. Davon has met adversities in his life head-on, which has instilled in him a strong desire to help others through the avenue of education. His goal is to teach on the high school grade level and give back to the place he calls home. We are so delighted to present this scholarship to Mr. Davis. He's not attending with us this evening, but he and his family are viewing virtually. He is an excellent candidate to return back to Granville Public Schools as a teacher, and you will be delighted once you meet him to see that he is far beyond his years as a student, and he's going to make an excellent teacher. So congratulations to Davon. Mr. Peace, is there anything you would like to add? Or Dr. Meyer, you served on the committee as well.
Just that Davon Davis was a great candidate. He interviewed, and, you know, I'm feeling good now that he's going to be a great access to this school system once he's get his college education behind him. Great job.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Next, Dr. McLean, I believe Mr. Perry will continue with our Employee of the Year presentations.
Yes, sir.
Tonight, this is an opportunity to recognize some really, really special employees. We have tons of great shining stars here in Granville County Public Schools, and tonight we get to recognize just a few of them in various categories. These employees have gone above and beyond. Their hard work and dedication to excellence has shone bright this year, and they are really our shining stars. Our staff had an opportunity to nominate individuals in each of the categories. Committee went through the nominations and selected the best candidates out of the shining stars. So tonight we'll begin with the Beginning Teacher of the Year. Our first awards for Beginning Teacher of the Year, which is for the 2022, so we go a year ahead. This person will compete at the state level for Beginning Teacher of the Year. So principals had an opportunity to nominate one of their first or second year teachers, first, second, or third year teachers. And our second runner-up this year is Miss Lee Smith from Butner STEM Elementary School. So congratulations to Miss Lee Smith. Our first runner-up is Miss Treya White from West Oxford Elementary School. And our beginning teacher for 2022 is Miss Catherine Dale from Butner STEM Middle School. Catherine will go on to participate in NCATS, which is the North Carolina Advancement for the Center of Teaching and Learning, and participate in their awards recognition program. So we look forward to supporting Catherine as an NCAT Beginning Teacher of the Year. Congratulations to all of our nominees, and congratulations especially to Catherine for serving as our representative. So moving forward, we'll begin with our other categories. First up, we have Bus Driver of the Year. And our Bus Driver of the Year for 2022 is from Mount Energy Elementary School, and that's Miss Vanessa Jackson. Substitute bus drivers are frequently called upon, and it can be very difficult to find someone on such short notice or someone willing to take on a route they have never driven before. She's very dedicated to that position. Vanessa has always helped when she could and communicated promptly when she could not. Her professionalism as an instructional assistant is the epitome of what Granville County Public Schools is all about. Her teamwork is to be commended, and her willingness to help when called upon signifies her commitment to the students, the school, and the district. I can think of no one more deserving. I appreciate her and all she does for the children of Granville County Public Schools, and that came from the person who nominated Mrs. Jenkins for that award. So congratulations to Ms. Jenkins for serving as Bus Driver of the Year. Moving on to Clerical Support of the Year, representing Tar River Elementary School, we have Ms. Anna Swanson. Ms. Swanson goes above and beyond her duties as the school secretary. She not only performs her duties of answering phone calls, communicating with parents, and etc., but she acts as the school nurse in her absence, bringing clothes to children who have had accidents, assisting them with changing, walking students down to class, and being willing to walk all over the school to bring multiple students down to the front for different reasons, or to bring teachers items that they need at that moment. She makes sure students are taking the packets at the front with them, stays with students whose parents are late, and she's willing to help with anything at our school. So we congratulate Ms. Anna Swanson for going above and beyond the call of duty as our Clerical Support of the Year. Next up, we have our Student Services Employee of the Year, and I think you guys may know this person. She's a very familiar face, and you may have seen her when you came in to get your temperature screen, and that's Miss Missy Cottrell. Yeah. So Miss Cottrell has been at the forefront of such an unprecedented year. From the 40 years of nursing experience Missy has encompassed, Granville County Public Schools weighed heavily on her guidance and expertise in the safety and health of our students and our staff. She has worked day and night with families and staff on providing COVID-19 information and resources. Missy represents the nursing team in Granville County Public Schools flawlessly. Congratulations to Missy on becoming or being this year's Student Support Services Employee of the Year. Well deserved. Next, we have our Instructional Assistant of the Year, and that's Miss Lakeisha Bailey from Granville Central High School. Miss Bailey works as a teacher assistant in an EC classroom. She's a positive role model for the students in her room. She is a fun Friday teacher and brings a ton of energy to the room. She also assists every week helping the administration prepare packets for remote students without internet. She has provided coverage in the front office when needed. She drives a bus each morning and afternoon. She helps with events at the school like our senior drive-through. When we were unable to have spectators, she comes to activities to support our students. She knows most students in the school by name and face, and is a tremendously hard worker, She is an inspiration to everyone who knows her and is the queen of cleanliness. Her room and her bus are always spotless. Congratulations, Ms. Bailey. Next, we have our Instructional Support Services Employee of the Year, and she represents Wilton Elementary School, and that's Ms. Stacy Mendenhall. As a speech therapist who serves more than one school, Stacy has gone above and beyond to meet the needs of her students. She collaborates with families to find mutually beneficial times to serve students for their direct therapy sessions. She holds meetings in the way that best meets the needs of the family, whether it's Zoom, phone conference, and she schedules times throughout the day to serve virtual students in person if that's better for the student and the family. And most importantly, she builds and maintains strong relationships with students and families. Congratulations to Stacy. Our final recognition for the evening is for Assistant Principal of the Year. And Mr. Tim Bobe of Tar River Elementary School is Granville County Public Schools Assistant Principal of the Year. Tim is an asset to Tar River and Granville County Schools. His skills and desire to support the staff and students have been highlighted. He made weekly home visits, worked with students and families to find clothes and food, and even provided transportation. He is kind and enthusiastic. In the AP Academy meetings, he provides meaningful feedback and suggestions on various topics. The enthusiasm he has for students shines through his words and actions, and he has established a good rapport with students and staff. Granville County Public Schools and our Granville County community, we have some wonderful staff members here in Granville County, and we're delighted to recognize these individuals tonight. So congratulations to you all, and continue to hold high that shining light. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it is our hope to get back to that program of excellence maybe next year when individuals may get to walk the stage. But this evening, that does not diminish the value these individuals bring to Granville County Public Schools. We're thrilled to provide these honors tonight.
Absolutely. On behalf of the board, we want to thank those individuals for working towards excellent achievement for all in what they do. We could not do this without this group, so we're very fortunate for them. Thank you, Mr. Perry. All right, next, Madam Superintendent, I believe we're moving to your Student Advisory Council.
Absolutely. Our student ambassadors are incredible. These young people work to assist me with providing the student perspective on various topics throughout the course of the school year. In fact, one of our speakers tonight who provided reflections, the one from Granville, from our early college program, happened to be one of our student ambassadors. And they think they're the boss of me. And I love it. I love it because this is the students' district, and hearing from them about some of these topics really matters. They are quite intuitive, and they do have a perspective, and getting their voice is critically important. So this evening, we are going to honor our student ambassadors. Dr. Winford?
Thank you, Dr. McLean. And I too have had the privilege of sitting in on those meetings, and it's truly wonderful to hear the wisdom that comes from their shared words. So this evening, we will recognize the representatives. From Butnerstem Elementary School, Garrick Paschal. Butnerstem Middle School, Tammy Isaguirre Ortega. From Butnerstem Middle School also, Charlize Norman. C.G. Cradle Elementary School, Shakara Richardson. From Creedmoor Elementary School of the Arts, Miles Dickerson. From Granville Academy, Ileana Morales. From Granville Central High School, Trenton Harrington. From Granville Early College High School, Sarah Elliott. From G.C. Hawley Middle School, Abigail Schaefer. From Mount Energy Elementary School, Nash Herman. From Northern Granville Middle School, Jermaine Puryear. From South Granville High School, Bailey O'Brien. Also from South Granville High School, Sydney Williamson. From Stovall Shaw Elementary School, William Brame. From Tar River Elementary School, Henry Charbonneau. From J.F. Webb High School, Faith Royster. From West Oxford Elementary School, Kaylee Hernandez. And from Wilton Elementary School, Chaya Williams. And while those students are unable to join us physically tonight, they are hopefully streaming and joining us tonight virtually. So we'd like to give them all a very special thank you for your contributions to our school district. Thank you, students.
That is certainly a special group of young people.
All right, again, we would like, on behalf of the board, to thank those who have volunteered their time, students that have gone above and beyond their commitment to studies, to making sure that Granville County is the best it can be by giving their opinions and their information and keeping the superintendent in line and all that good stuff. So we're very appreciative for that group.
Absolutely.
All right. Next, we have a special district personnel recognition, and I believe you, oh, hold on.
Class of 2021 Senior Reflections.
Sorry. Okay.
That's right.
All right, we have, we're going to recognize our senior reflections. Okay, now I'm getting the note.
We did that earlier, ma'am.
We did.
Simply added it onto the agenda so there'd be a record of it.
That's it. We're just going to acknowledge it.
Okay.
Just acknowledging that we did that earlier this evening, and we had each school represented, and they provided reflections of their experience while in Granville County Public Schools. It was an absolutely wonderful moment right before this meeting. So we just wanted to acknowledge it, that did take place tonight.
It's one of our favorite things to do right after graduation or sometimes before graduation, that we were able to recognize them. So we appreciate the work that the students put into that. So, all right. So next, we are doing a special district personnel recognition, and I believe the superintendent, you'll meet me at the podium.
Yes, sir.
Board members, it's my honor to come to you tonight to be able to present a special recognition for a district staff member. We have a little piece of business to take care of before we do that I need your approval to do. We have drafted a resolution on your behalf tonight, and I would like to read that resolution, and after we are done reading that, we will bring that to you as a vote. Whereas the Granville County Public School District has been fortunate to have a dedicated staff member with 14 years of experience committed to the mission of the district. And whereas this member of the staff is now about to embark a new senior leadership role in another local education agency. And whereas we as the members of the Granville County Board of Education wish to extend our utmost appreciation for the work that this staff member has done to make education an exciting and joyous experience for the students of our district. And whereas the board wishes to extend our sincere best wishes for every happiness in the future to this staff member who will be leaving the district effective June 30th, 2021. Now therefore be it resolved that the Granville County Board of Education recognizes and appreciates the service of this employee departing the district, this employee being Dr. Michael A. Meyer, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction and Student Services, and wishes him well in his future endeavors, and further that this resolution of appreciation and support be duly recorded and entered into the minutes of the Granville County Board of Education on this 7th day of the month of June in the year 2021. To this resolution, we set our hands and seals, signed by the chairman and vice chairman of the Board of Education and the superintendent of schools. Board members, we'd like to entertain a motion that you approve this resolution in honor of Dr. Michael Meyer. Do we have a motion to that effect?
Motion to approve.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, Dr. Meyer, can you join me up here? I see that look you were giving me since you figured out your wife is here. I know where your daughter got the look from now. So on behalf of the Board of Education, we want to present you this signed resolution and thank you for your service to the district.
Thank you.
We also, if you want to set that down, because this bad boy is heavy right here. The Granville County Board of Education thanks you for your 14 years of leadership and service to the students and staff of Granville County Public Schools. Try not to drop it. Board members, I want to give you an opportunity if you would like to make a comment to Dr. Myrick. She's so bossy.
Well, Dr. Myrick. Dr. Myrick, how are you tonight? Are we doing well? I was going to agree with you. Those eyes, that look, good gracious, that scared me to death. Well, you've been in your job a number of years, and you know what? It's been so much fun for an old person is to watch you grow. And not only grow in knowledge and understanding, but grow as a person and as a professional. We actually see you laugh every once in a while. And that is the first time in years we've seen that. But anyway, seriously, we wish you the best. I know that you may think you know what it's like being a superintendent, but I'll guarantee you probably don't. So just keep an open mind. You've got a phone right there to her, and I'm sure you'll be calling, and we will miss you, and we thank you for what you've done, and best wishes.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Myrick, it's been a long 14 years. I can remember the first time I saw you up at Webb, thinking you was the principal. But it's been interesting, and I've enjoyed working with you. You've been an asset to this school system, and I just want to congratulate you on your new endeavors, and thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Before you sit down, just want to say thank you for your years of service, Dr. Meyer. You leave a mighty large pair of shoes that's going to need to be filled around here. We would definitely miss you, and you know, if there's anything that we can give you later on down the road, you need some advice, you know, you can just call us and send us a text.
I will.
That'd be a mistake, wouldn't it?
Well, Dr. Myrick, I would just like to also congratulate you and thank you for everything that I have been able to glean from you since my short starting here in December when I was sworn in. And when I heard that you was leaving, I said, wait a minute, he hasn't worked with me that much yet, you know. But I know that there are great things that await you, and I congratulate you. And I know I saw your daughter at the graduation, and we're proud of you and family.
Thank you.
And God bless you.
It's been a real pleasure getting to know you. Wish you well in your endeavors. What you've done over the last years will leave an imprint that will go on for a long time. So good luck. Godspeed.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not the most eloquent of speakers, but I guess since everybody else said something. No, I echo that. Just definitely, we're going to miss you for sure. I have really appreciated being able to work with you on the short period of time that I've been here. And I'm definitely going to miss the fact of having a comrade of arts appreciation for sure. So.
Thank you.
Dr. Meyer, on behalf of the board, we greatly appreciate everything you've done for us and for the school district. I told you I didn't accept your resignation when you gave it to me. I was told it didn't matter. But just know that we're right around the corner if you need us, and we'll be there supporting you. And so it's my honor now to introduce our chair and vice chair of the Granville County Board of Education, Ms. Sue Hemman and Dr. Tony Cozart, for Commissioner, sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm not doing this very well tonight. All right, we'd like to have them come speak.
Well, thank you. Speak behind you, and let Dr. Cozart be on that side with you. Dr. Meyer, we're just so excited. Weren't you in my leadership Granville class way back in that day? And I just was so impressed with you back then that I can't tell you, and it's thrilling to me to know the heights that you're ready to excel to. So I just want to say, you're going to be missed, but we enjoyed having you. I'm going to give you this wonderful little resolution, and I'm going to let my vice chair, Dr. Cozart, read this to you.
Dr. Myrick, this is really a special pleasure, and as much as I hate to see you leave Granville County Schools, I know of your work. For those who don't know, Dr. Myrick served as principal at Webb when one of my daughters was there. And during my tenure with Granville County Schools with SEAL, Dr. Myrick was the main point of contact at central office. And I hope you remember fondly SEAL Plus. I don't know if you remember SEAL Plus, but I remember it very well. We had to do that to make accommodations for some students with special challenges. And as I have watched your growth and development, I just say I'm just happy that we met. I also have had the chance to cross paths with Dr. Myrick through his church affiliation, and so he has been very involved in the community, as you would see with the resolution that we have. And from our board, have a proclamation congratulating Dr. Michael A. Myrick on being named Superintendent of Weldon City Schools. Whereas Dr. Michael A. Myrick will take office on July 1st, 2021, as the next superintendent of Weldon City Schools, and whereas Dr. Myrick has served Granville County Public Schools with distinction for the past 14 years, first as principal, then director, and for the last 7 as assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction and student services. And whereas Dr. Myrick is an engaged member of our community, he is a past president of the Oxford Rotary Club, Rotary International. He serves on the Oxford Advisory Council for the Boys and Girls Club of North Central North Carolina, and on the advisory board for Vance Granville Community College, School of Arts and Sciences. He also serves on the board of directors for the North Carolina Association of Supervision and Curriculum Development and the North Carolina Science, Mathematics, and Technology Education Center. And whereas Superintendent McLean offered her perspective, stating, "It comes as no surprise that Dr. Myrick has been selected to lead another school district as superintendent. His past experience and dedication to the profession is truly noteworthy. He serves by putting children first, always thinking of their best interest. We will miss him not only for his leadership role in the district, but as a respected member of the Granville County Public School family. I personally will miss him as a valued member of the senior staff, but know he will do amazing things for Weldon City Schools. We wish him all the best as he takes the next step in his career, continuing to serve children. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Granville County Board of Commissioners extend its congratulations to Dr. Michael A. Myrick and wish him success in his new role as Superintendent of Weldon City Schools this 7th day of June 2021. Best of luck to you. Thank you so much.
Before we take our picture, I want to make sure that Dr. Myrick gets this 275th coin for this year. This is our 275th anniversary, and that way you don't forget us. And everybody else can get one too, but yours is going to cost $5 from the library of the County Commissioner's office. You're welcome to come on down and get them. We just have a couple, because we did not expect this COVID thing to be this bad. But thank you, Dr. Meyer. You are going to be missed, and I'm so glad you read that, because I'd have cried the second paragraph in. So thank you for everything you've done. And can we take our mask off, please? Thank you. And I'm sure that we've got a couple more here. I'm going to sneak out for our board meeting. Thank you.
Dr. Meyer. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to be able to say, like many big sisters say, I have birthed my first superintendent. Isn't that what big sisters say? And I say that because I actually met this young man when he was in college. And who knew our paths would cross again in life? And when I got here, he was the interim superintendent. And he allowed me to be the superintendent. And I am forever grateful to you for that. I am. But behind every good educator is a good family. I cannot do what I do without a remarkable husband and daughter, and you will not be able to do what you do without a remarkable wife and family. So I'm going to ask your wife and family to come up here because I want you to open this. This is from your district. We want you to take this with you so that people know you were loved here. And they don't have to give this to you because you already have something that says superintendent. And we want that on your desk. That should match. We've already called to check. And Dr. Myrick knows the day he went down there to meet people that night and to sign things, you know I said something to you when I was sort of trying to get him dressed. And I was asking what he was wearing and what type of shirt and don't wear those socks and so forth and so on. And I was doing what I do. Yes, don't wear those. So open this because that is something you know I always kind of say in this role, be on team, overdressed if you're going to go. So while he opens that, yes, you always need cufflinks. Always. So, Andrew, this is for you because I'm the child of educators, and I know they're going to try to drag you all over the place. So, this might help make your journey just a little bit easy. And this young lady just graduated this past weekend from Granville County Public Schools, and we're so proud of her. But we know this is hard on the family as well. So, this is for you because we think the world of you as well. And Ms. Shade has something for you, Flo. We appreciate you allowing us to share your husband. Yes, we'll put it all on the table. You can hold that little one. And we want you to know we are all here for your entire family as you all go through this transition of college and superintendent and just trying to do everything. This Granville County Public Schools family is here for you. For whatever you need, we're just a phone call or a text away. We mean that sincerely. We appreciate everything you've done, and we are cheering for you.
Thank you.
Would you like to say anything? I sort of knew it. All right.
He's not getting all that stuff for free. He needs to talk.
Speech.
Thank you.
30-minute speech.
How long?
Thank you, everyone, for tonight. It's very surprising. I was not expecting it, and of course, Dr. McLean and Stan and Beth know that I do not like stuff like this. So, thank you so much. I will miss everyone. Working in Granville County has been an absolute honor, and I'm going to say this, and I'm sure that someone from Weldon will watch it eventually, but Granville County has really spoiled me. I thought Vance County had spoiled me when I came here, but leaving Granville County, going to Wilderness City, it's going to be quite a tall order for that crew down there. So I'm looking forward to it, but I definitely will miss all of you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Myrick. Thank you, Myrick family. Just want you to know he knew what was going on when they walked in. The look came across his face trying to figure it out.
He was mad at you.
All right, Madam Superintendent, I believe we are at the part of public comment now.
Yes, sir. Dr. Winborn.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Chairman, also, we have one member of the public who has signed up this evening, Miss Amy Hobgood of 7045 Mountain Road, Oxford, and the subject of tonight is thank you. Ms. Hobgood, when you're ready, you have 5 minutes to speak.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, superintendent, and staff. My name is Amy Hobgood. I am the director at Falls Lake Academy in Creedmoor, North Carolina. I come to you tonight to express my gratitude. On May 24th, 3 of the Falls Lake Academy juniors were involved in a tragic car accident that claimed the life of one young man and left 2 boys physically injured and a loss of their best friend. That night, I opened our school to receive students following the baseball game that the young men were heading to. We knew that students would want to gather in a safe space to receive this information. I was expecting a long night ahead. I had called in the crisis team. What I was not expecting was the fact that the very first phone call that I would receive that night would be from Dr. McLean. Dr. McLean called to not only give her condolences, but to offer her complete support and the support of all of Granville County Public Schools. She was not the only person that we heard from that night from Granville County Public Schools. We also heard from Dr. Winborn and from Dr. Tanya Thomas. To say that it was meaningful would not begin to express the weight that was lifted from the shoulders of my crisis team to know that we had people in our corner that had experienced a tragic loss such as this before and could help us down that very rough road that we had ahead. While many people would like to paint a picture of us being competitors to meet some sort of political agenda, in reality, we are collaborators. We share the same mission and vision, and that is to care for all of the students in Granville County. We share families between our school and Granville County Public Schools, and it just so happens to be that the family that experienced the loss also had a student in Granville County Public Schools. So tonight, I wanted to publicly express my gratitude on behalf of Falls Lake Academy and our board, our teachers, our families. Thank you very much for your kindness. Thank you for being willing to be there for all of the students that we serve in this great district. Granville County Public Schools was my home for 13 years of my career. I continue to be proud of the work that you all do. So, thank you.
Ms. Hobgood, thank you so much. Appreciate that. All right, next, Madam Superintendent, I believe you have your report.
Oh, can I do it now?
Yeah. Do you need a second?
Okay. That was just really sweet. That was very, very kind. Okay. That was very sweet. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Education, parents, educators, students, and guests. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our students who just participated in this year's Senior Reflections at 5:15 p.m. this afternoon. Our school district is honored to have served each of them. Please allow me to also extend a heartfelt congratulations to all of our red carpet honorees this evening. It has been a pleasure to work with our student representatives who get to tell me what to do, and I always enjoy the great success of our athletes. Tonight, we celebrated the Viking softball team. Congratulations to all of our adult honorees as well. Granville County Public Schools is still on the move. To our audience, we are delighted all of you have taken time to visit and tune in with us this evening as we execute our 2021 end-of-year regularly scheduled board meeting. What this year has been unbelievable in many ways. There were many moments where we all thought nothing more could happen until something else did. But we prevailed as a school system and as a community, and we made it through. Our educators provided virtual and face-to-face instruction. We provided academic packets. Nearly 1.5 million meals were served. 75 student desks were distributed. Nearly every Granville County Public Schools student had a box of books delivered to his or her home, and so much more. Together, we made our way through a pandemic, an ice storm, power outages, broadband issues, a fuel crisis, and many more acts beyond our control. But thanks to our amazing educators, supportive parents and guardians, and incredible students, our GCPS family is still intact. We may have found a new normal, but we are all still here, and we are planning for next year. For that, I say thank you, one and all. This past weekend signified the culmination of many years and many moments of hard work and perseverance. This was demonstrated at our various graduation ceremonies across the district. We declared 439 graduates at 5 schools who earned over $6.1 million in grants. We honor and salute our 2021 graduates. Each ceremony was live streamed and can be found on our YouTube channel. Our K-8 end-of-year celebrations were fantastic as well. This evening's agenda is rich with many important topics for our board to hear and consider and discuss. The value will be instrumental in assisting our district with moving ahead. Board members, in your folders tonight, you will find a wonderful letter from the International Baccalaureate Office informing us that our application for candidacy for the MYP, meaning Middle Years Program, at our G.C. Hawley Middle School site has been approved. Yes, approved. We will continue applying according to the guidelines and rules for candidacy at this point. I would like to congratulate our administration and staff at G.C. Hawley and know we will continue supporting this application process. You will also find summer reading challenge materials and book bus materials in your folder this evening. The book bus is expanding its reach this summer. In fact, it will serve students who are attending Summer Quest as well as students in our community. You will also find some information on our new local articulation agreement with Vance Granville Community College as it relates to simulation and game design fundamental certification for students. How fun! You will learn more about this exciting news later in tonight's meeting. GCPS is still on the move. Finally, it is important I share that our team is in the process of restructuring and reorganizing district-level positions internally, while you, the Board of Education, take care of building reorganization. There will be more to share on this later this evening and at our June 29th meeting as it pertains to our organization chart. So please stay tuned. This concludes my report at this time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. McLean. Board members, do you have any questions for the superintendent? All right, seeing none, we'll continue. Thank you. Next, we'll have reports from myself and other board members. First, before I begin my written remarks, I'd like to speak about our public comment. This is just one example of how these two entities have worked together. I first met Ms. Hobgood when she was stuffing dinner rolls across from me as we were preparing for spring break feeding last year, and various other ways that these two entities have collaborated. But this is most important, that we were able to work with them on this. And I want to thank our district staff and those involved in that, and your leaderships, Dr. McLean, to make sure that we did that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So good evening. I would like to thank all of you for being here tonight to do the work of our district. As I mentioned in my graduation remarks this past weekend, this school year has been like none other. We have navigated the highs and lows of virtual learning. We have had to make several changes rapidly to plans that literally took teams of people weeks to complete, making the word pivot a key to our lexicon. We all have been touched by some way in the devastating effects of COVID-19. But more than that, we have strived to continue learning, continue to be involved in community with each other, even in new innovative ways, and just like was demonstrated with Falls Lake. We graduated our high school seniors and heard great reflections from them this evening. And we are now turning our focus towards Summer Quest and making plans for the new school year that will be here before we know it. But I say all this to say thank you. Thank you to the students trying to do their best. Thank you to educators who step up and go above and beyond for children. Thank you to administrators that support teachers who support students. Thank you to all the support staff that enable all these others to do what they need to do to work towards reaching excellence and achievement for all. Again, I would like to express my gratitude and personal appreciation to Dr. Meyer for his service to the children of Granville County and the educators of Granville County Public Schools. Your leadership will prove invaluable in your new endeavors. And while I'm happy for you, I also acknowledge that I will greatly miss you as a leader and an educator. As a friend of mine, I'm also thankful for you and hope that Weldon City knows exactly what they're getting. I meant that to be good.
Nice.
But apparently they need to know what they're exactly getting. We have quite a few items of importance to deal with tonight, and as we work to make decisions, I want to remind each of us that we need to be cheerleaders for Granville County Public Schools, and that the decisions we make affect quite a few people. But more importantly, as we make these decisions, we should focus on what is best for children. With that being said, let's jump into the business we need to discuss and take care of tonight. In board docs, you have an exhibit related to our participation in the North Carolina School Boards Association Action Center. One notable change that has occurred this year is that in our participation, we can call on the Action Center to assist us in our lobbying efforts for local bills that will prove valuable as we act on local legislation. One item being changed is our board terms, that we can utilize them to get in front of the General Assembly. With that, I would either entertain questions related to this action item or entertain a motion related to the participation with the North Carolina School Boards Action Center. So, board, what is your pleasure?
I make a motion to approve it.
All right, we have a motion by Dr. Houlihan, a second by Mr. Peace. Is there any questions or discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion carries. One last thing I'd like to report on is earlier today, myself and Dr. Houlihan met with the liaison committee of the county commissioners. Primarily, we had a discussion of the financial considerations surrounding consolidation. I felt like I owed it to them to make sure that they understood that there had been another study requested and kind of what that was doing to our timeline. We also found out that there should be a vote on our budget continuation of $250,000 this evening at their board meeting. So we wait anxiously to hear how that pans out. Dr. Houlihan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I have a lot to add, but I won't.
Okay. All right, with that, that is my report. Y'all are in rare form tonight. All right, I'd ask, is there any other board members that have reports to give or items to bring to the board?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, Dr. McKnight?
Just wanted to take a second to address the board and the public. It's come to my attention that there are some concerns regarding my involvement in the discussion around district building reorganization. So I'd like to take a moment to address it. For those who are unaware, I'd like to disclose that my wife is principal of Creedmoor Elementary School of the Arts, one of the schools being studied as a possible closure. As a contracted employee, her contract is not dependent upon the school. She may work at CESA, but she works for Granville County Public Schools. So that being said, I feel like I can be an impartial participant in this discussion. I feel that I would not be fulfilling my responsibility to represent my constituents by abstaining from the conversation at this time. So unless legal counsel advises otherwise, I intend to actively participate and fulfill my duty with impartiality. So I just want to put that out there and say thank you for listening.
All right. Board members, are there other items or any comments?
I do, if I could.
Dr.
First of all, Dr. McKnight, thank you for doing that. I'm so glad that if anybody raises a question down the road as we go through consolidation, who knows what could come out. And by you sharing that, acknowledging that, I think it's going to take a whole lot off the table, so thank you. Let me take a few minutes, if I could. I'm going to give Dr. McLean, after this meeting, a set of materials that I'm going to ask her to print for all the board members. And let me tell you just a little bit what I'm talking about. And frankly, when I got home today from our meeting, I was so interesting that I just felt I needed to get this information to you because, as you'll see, I think you'll understand. Originally, I put this together for our two newest board members, just on my own, because I knew that probably you and maybe you, because of the years that you've been gone, may not understand how our system of education works here. And it's critical that you do, that all of us do, because it is a most unusual system from the standpoint of who we report to and all that kind of stuff. And given what we're going through with the commissioners, I think it's so important. So let me just make a few quick points, then we'll get it to you. It's a report on North Carolina's system of education that I call a report on the 9 layers of education in this state. And the difference between North Carolina and a number of states down here, and say Indiana or Illinois, where some of us lived or went to school, whatever, it's like night and day. In our county growing up, where there was more corn stalks than there were people, and more Amish than there were people, the English, it was just, we had tax levying authority, which means we basically were in control as a school system of funding. Now, we had to go directly to the public, and 9 times out of 10, that usually went well. Enough of that. My point I'm making is there are 9 layers in this state that we have to report to that impact what goes on in that classroom. And the 9 layers include even identifying who they are, and then you go to the governor, all the way down. And the last one, well, the 2 last ones, the second to last is our local commissioners. And remember this, he or she who has the money rules. And that's exactly what goes on in this state. Who's got the money will tell others what to do, and we are caught at the bottom of the level in terms of all the directives. And a quick example is House Bill 82, which I put in here for folks to read about summer school, I read the word shall 37 times in that bill. Now, some of it is, legal and all that kind of stuff. Shall means you will do. It's a classic example. If we wanted to offer reading all day to our kids in different ways, we can't do it. We got to follow this, that, and the other. It's just a great example. The bottom line is our state is a system of command and control. It's one of the oldest kinds of bureaucracy that exist. It is top down. We are told what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and the punishment that happens. And here's my last point. We've been going through the commissioners about all the funding and all this kind of stuff. Invariably, they're critical of us. They blame us. They say we're 34% of the budget, all kinds of stuff, and excuses. We can't win that battle because they have the money. And as long as we live in a system like we live in, where ultimately we're held responsible, but there are 8 layers above us that are telling us what to do, the theory is the system is irrevocably flawed. And unless we're willing to step out as a board and do some things and try to find some things and support our superintendent, we are going to continue to be mired in this junk over and over again. So bottom line, I want you to see this information. It may help you. You can tell it's very important. And we have just got to do something to change things. And Dr. McClan and I have talked about it. If you always do what you've always done, you're always going to get what you got. And the way the bureaucracy works now in this state, it's tough. It's really tough. So just want to share that with you. We'll get it to you. I hope it's of interest to you. And I promise, Ms. Anderson, as I told you 5 times, I'll get it to you personally. Thank you very much.
Anything else, board members? All right, moving into our policy section tonight. 9.01, our local articulation agreement with Vance Granville Community College. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, Dr. Myrick, will you share that with us? This is some good, exciting news, everyone. We're thrilled to share this. Dr. Myrick?
Yes, so Ms. Salisbury and I have worked with Vance Granville Community College on this, and I'm going to ask her to just come and just give us an overview.
We are so excited this evening to announce that we have a local articulation agreement between Granville County Public Schools and Vance Granville Community College. Go ahead. Our students are able to take courses at Granville Central High School in digital design and animation and game art design. And those courses will transfer over to the community college. And so students will be able to take, after they take these 3 courses at Granville Central High School, they will then be able to take 2 additional courses at the community college and have completed the IT simulation and game development design fundamental certificate program. That's a mouthful. But we are very excited that we have 23 students who can begin that program this summer. So we have partnered with Vance Granville, and they are working with our guidance counselors at the high school to get those juniors to go ahead and get registered to be ready for fall semester, and to get those students who have graduated this year and are eligible for this certificate program to be able to go ahead and get in that program and complete those 2 classes. Vance Granville is also looking back to our 2020 graduates who are eligible to complete this certification, and I believe there were 13 of those. So as you can see, we've got a chart here. The certificate program at Vance Granville is 5 3-hour courses. And so if our students complete those 3 courses at Granville Central High School, they will only have 2 additional courses to complete that certification pathway. And these students at Vance Granville can complete this certification pathway and then move straight into an associate's in science using these credits, and then move on to a 4-year school to complete a bachelor's degree in science. So we're very, very excited about this opportunity for our students and look forward to possibly creating more CTE pathways, partnerships between our school system and Vance Granville Community College. Any questions? Thank you.
All right,
It's
thank you,
awesome.
Ms. Halls.
Exciting news.
All right, next is our 9.02 redistricting update. Ooh. Attorney?
Thank you. Board members, you will see here on the agenda that there is attached a proposed engagement letter with the law firm of Brooks Pierce. And let me give you a little background here. So as we've discussed before, the 10-year census is coming up, or the results are coming, and it will be time for Granville County to look at your voting districts. You have obviously 7 districts, and in Granville, the commissioners and the Board of Education have the same district lines, which isn't required but is nice, and something that you've managed to maintain over a number of years. And so by law, when the census comes out, if there is substantial inequality in numbers, if the people have moved, then you have to redraw your districts to be as equal as possible on the principle of one person, one vote. You don't want to have one district that's substantially more people who have one representative and one that's smaller. So, the way that you do this is obviously with the help of consultants, and that's who this is. The county attorney and I have been collaborating on this, and he got proposals from 2 law firms, and we reviewed them both, and one was significantly higher than the other. This is the lower one. It also happens to be a very reputable firm, and we both felt comfortable with it and also felt like it was a better proposal for both boards. And so he is bringing this to the commissioners tonight as well. And if you approve engaging with this firm, one of the things you'll see in this letter is what's called a conflicts waiver, because they would be representing the commissioners and the Board of Education as equal partners. So they would have 2 clients, and they can do that because and so you would agree that, yes, we're going to both have the same lawyer, we will share information between us. If at some point that relationship stops working, then the lawyers would probably have to withdraw from representing both of you. So, but this is how you did it 10 years ago, and it worked well from what I understand, with working together jointly. Also, of course, then you get to share the cost. And so the law firm works with a demographer, who is the person who actually handles the raw census data and draws maps using specialized software. And then what they will do is bring you, first they will come and meet with you and talk to you about the process and get feedback from you on your goals for the redistricting. Then they'll go draw the maps, and then they will bring you some choices. I think last time it was 3, they brought you 3 maps. Last time it was a different law firm, but anyway, they'll bring you 2 or 3 maps that show different ways you could redraw the lines. The boards try to collaborate and vote on adopting one. It is going to be this year a very rushed process. Usually you would have the data already. Because of COVID and whatnot, the census data has been delayed, and you have, as compared to most districts, a very early election. Because your primary is in March instead of May, your filing period is in December. So basically, this is going to have to happen, the final census data is supposed to be released September 30th, and you have to have your new maps before the filing period starts. So this is going to happen in October, November. You may have to have some extra meetings in that time period to get it done, but you don't have a choice. There was a request, I know that there was some desire for the legislature to give some relief by moving those election dates. They have not done that. There is a bill pending that would do it for municipalities, but not for counties and school boards, and I think that's where it sits right now. So it is what it is. But I talked to these lawyers today to ask them some questions about this and say, you understand how fast this is going to have to happen? They said they do. So that's where we stand. So their proposal is that sometime between now and August, probably, they would come out and give you a little presentation and meet with you. Any questions about that? So once we have had our discussion, we will be asking for, if this meets your approval, a motion to, I would say, to authorize the chair to enter into this engagement on behalf of the board. Any questions?
Oh, yeah, I have a question. The process that we go through, at some point, the two boards have to meet and discuss and go over. I guess it would be after the maps are drawn.
As far as when you would have to meet together?
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I suppose you could do it separately, but that would be that would be tricky. Yeah.
Well, I sort of remember the last time we did this, we met together, I think, twice.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of discussion about the lines being drawn in.
Yeah. So you would definitely, yes, when the maps are drawn, when they come to give the presentation initially, I think you could do that together. I haven't talked to them about that one way or the other, whether they would present to each board separately or together. Yeah. If you're happy to do it together, I think they would be.
That's fine, but, when we start looking at maps, we need to do it together.
Okay.
Before that, I'm not partial to how we do that.
Mm-hmm. But yes, I agree, you would need to, you wouldn't want the two separate boards choosing a separate map.
Right. Just
because they weren't having the discussion together.
Mr. Attorney.
Yes, sir.
On something like this, do boards come up with a set of guiding principles or key things that we must do so that we're all kind of doing the same thing, so to speak? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, I think one of the things that they will be looking for from you is any parameters. One issue that has come up already is how to treat the prison population. Obviously, they are counted in your population, but there are different ways you can address them as far as how you count them for districting, and so that's something that you will discuss as an example.
All right. Any further questions?
I remember that being an issue from the last time because part of the population is in Durham County and part of it is in Granville. So that was, I don't remember how that played out, but I know it was a lot of discussion around that and how it affected the numbers.
I see.
And I believe we've actually already been lobbied about that once already from
About
a
the prison?
citizen.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be because it's a large number of people who don't generally vote here, but who are living here. So.
All right, Board, this comes to you as an action item. It's been presented by the attorney that we approve the engagement letter presented by Brooks and Pierce to share in that cost and that engagement with the county commissioners. What would be the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. LeBrecq to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Peace. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Thank you, attorney.
Thank you.
Madam Superintendent, I think next 9.03, ESSER 2 and 3 funding prioritization for 2021.
Yes, sir. I'm going to ask Dr. Pauletta Thompson, Dr. Renborn, and Lauren Curtis to please come forward and share with us at this time.
Dr. Thompson, which one would you like me to pull up first? The other one?
Good evening, board members. We are here this evening to provide you some information about the American Rescue Plan Act and the emergency relief funding that our district has received. So just a bit of background about the ARP. Just a bit of background about the ARP. The ARP is $122.7 billion in supplemental emergency relief funding that state and local agencies will be able to take advantage of. The funds were allocated to school districts to help safely reopen, sustain the safe operations of schools, and to address the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on our nation's students. So to Dr. Houlihan's point from earlier, tonight's presentation will primarily address the federal requirements that our LEA must follow. So I will be reading directly from the guidance at some points just to make sure that you all have a concise understanding of our next steps. So a primary requirement in Section 2001, Part 1 of the ARP requires that each LEA receiving the ESSER funding to develop and make publicly available on the LEA's website no later than 30 days after receiving the ARP ESSER funds, a plan for the safe return to in-person instruction and continuity of services for all schools. An approved safe return to school plan is required of all fund recipients, including those that have already returned to in-person instruction. This plan must also include a detail of the ARP Act spending. So tonight, we are going to detail this plan for you, and you can go to the next slide. However, prior to explaining how we have come to this plan, I want to just mention that this was a collaborative effort. We engaged a variety of stakeholders to develop our plan. So we took a synthesis of feedback from our task forces. We used some of the recommendations from our budget committee. We also administered surveys to our district and school leaders and teachers. And also we held 2 focus group sessions to arrive at our plan. So again, I will read a bit of guidance to you before I detail our planned uses of the funding. So the ARP Act required that each LEA set aside a 20% minimum to address learning loss. The description of the learning loss includes any evidence-based interventions that respond to students' academic, social, and emotional needs. So a few of the interventions that you will see highlighted in our plan are expanding extended day opportunities, increasing instructional and personalized school support personnel, also upgrading our core curriculum materials, and offering training to families through Our Parent University. The remaining 80% of our plan will be spent on 6 additional available or allowable uses. So the first is addressing the unique needs of special populations, which include activities to address the unique needs of low-income children, children with disabilities, English learners, racial and ethnic minorities, students experiencing homelessness, and foster care youth. So again, just to mention a few of our activities, we plan to use these funds to increase the number of pre-K and ESL teachers, also hire additional parent support personnel to improve our home-to-school connection. And again, a more detailed description can be found on page 13 of our plan. The next is improving preparedness and response. And we will do that by developing and implementing procedures and systems to improve preparedness. So our efforts here will include reducing our school nurse to student ratio, increasing the number of custodians that we have to meet the federal and state cleanliness guidance, and retaining the number of school-based clerical staff to ensure we have effective response times to our community. The next is long-term closure activities, and that includes planning for and coordinating during long-term closures, including for how to provide meals to eligible students, how to provide technology for online learning to all students, how to provide guidance for carrying out requirements under the IDEA, and how to ensure educational services can continue to be provided consistent with all federal, state, and local requirements. Some of our uses in this section are providing digital teaching and learning PD for teachers, providing the 5-star virtual academy during the 2021 academic year, and increasing support for families to better understand digital learning through our parent university. The next is educational technology, and that includes purchasing educational technology such as hardware, software, and connectivity to help aid in the instruction for students. And since we leverage a lot of our CARES ESSER 1 dollars for this, we plan to use these funds primarily to provide additional services for Wi-Fi for our students that are still in need, and also to continue our subscription with the Zoom or Google Meet. The next is mental health services, and this one's self-explanatory, any mental and health services or support that are needed. Some of our uses include increasing the number of school social workers and guidance counselors to better support the needs of our students, and purchasing a comprehensive K-12 SEL curriculum. And then the last section is summer learning and supplemental programming for summers 22 through 24. And while the mention of summer is there, we also can use these dollars to include any after-school, providing robust after-school programming and extended learning programming through 2024. So again, more specific details for how we will spend our dollars are found in the ESSER LEA plan. Dr. Winborn, do you mind pulling it up? One second. So our district LEA plan can be found on our website. It is inclusive of our safe return to school plan as well as our funding plan. And again, our funding plan begins on page 13. Many of the items that I have discussed, you will find beginning on page 13. What's also there provides you with just an overview of what I mentioned as far as that collaborative process that we use to develop the plan. So at this time, I will turn it over to Ms. Curtis to discuss our safe return to school plan.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson. Good evening, board members. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our safe return to school plan. Dr. Winborn, if you'll. Thank you. So just an overview, and then I'll share a few details. Our safe return to school plan, you've already approved for next year, two learning options for families, which are face-to-face instruction 5 days per week, or the 5-star virtual academy. And our families have already made that choice about how their child will attend school next year. But in order to prepare for a safe return to school next year, we are going to do the following things to stop and slow the spread of COVID-19 in our schools. First, we're going to follow the guidance in the Strong Schools North Carolina Public Health Toolkit. It's important to remember that the most recent version of this was published on May 14th. We anticipate further revisions to this document during the summer, and as those updates are made, we will incorporate those into our safe return to school plan. However, we had to make a plan based on the current guidance. So the current plan includes continuing to work with Granville Advanced Public Health and the ABC Science Collaborative to understand the most up-to-date research. We're going to continue to monitor our readiness indicators, which are our operational readiness, our COVID-19 metrics, seek stakeholder feedback, and again, monitor that emerging research. I do want to address what are some of the strategies we're going to use, and these are the ones, again, that are outlined in Strong Schools. A couple of highlights. Physical distancing, which means currently, and again, this could change during the summer, 3 feet between students and 6 feet between adults and students and adults. Minimizing exposure does mean that when possible, we will keep our students in cohorts during the day, but that's not always possible, so there will be times when students are mixing between classes. It means not bringing large groups of large groups together for assemblies and limited number of visitors on our campus. Cloth face coverings are still required inside for students on school campuses, according to the latest executive order and the Strong Schools NC Public Health Toolkit. We'll continue to monitor for symptoms, so we will encourage families to do home screening, and our staff is currently doing a self-attestation every day, and when visitors come, we screen them. We will continue to follow the guidance of Granville Advanced Public Health and the CDC when it comes to quarantine and isolation. And finally, we will ensure that we are protecting vulnerable populations by providing accommodations when necessary for our staff and students that have health concerns. So those are the mitigating strategies that we'll be using, just as we've been using them throughout the year. And as you recall, those have all changed as the year has gone on. We expect some of those will change this summer, and as those change, we will keep you updated. But what's in our Safe Return to School plan right now is in compliance with what's in the Strong Schools Public Health Toolkit right now. And as it changes, we'll let you know.
So we have discussed Section 1 of the ARP Act. Section 2001, Part 2 of the ARP Act further requires that LEAs must seek public comment on the Safe Return to School plan and take those comments into account in the finalization of the plan. The final requirements published by the U.S. Department of Ed state that the LEA must periodically, but no less frequently than every 6 months, must review and as appropriate revise the Safe Return plan. So again, tonight's presentation is for informational purposes only. This plan must be made available for public comment through July 31st. There is a link on our website for our community to provide feedback. And the plan must be approved by the Board of Ed by August 23rd and revisited every 6 months thereafter through 2024. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. All right, Madam Superintendent, our next thing is a technology update from Mr. Connor.
Absolutely. Mr. Ernie Connor, please. We have some exciting news tonight.
Good evening, board members. First of all, I would like to share with you a few technology updates that we plan to implement. But before I go any further, I would like to thank you for providing and already having in place an outstanding technology department that I will have to be able to work with to be able to implement these changes. So I thank you for that. I'm excited to work in this district and to work with this team to provide the technology that I think that the school system and our students deserve. And there are a lot of challenges, and we're going to need this technology to be able to provide the quality education that our students deserve. So I would like to go over just three basic topics that we plan to upgrade and work on these next several weeks and months. The first thing I would like to discuss is that we want to make sure that we offer outstanding technology support for our students and our teachers and our staff. And we're in the process right now of updating our online technology ticket system. There will be one system for students and staff. It is a cloud-based solution that can be accessed by anyone that has internet access. We have strived to make sure, as we reviewed the system that we're going to use, to make sure that it is user-friendly for students and staff. We wanted to make sure that it's easily accessible. There will be a mobile app for our users that use their cell phone and carry their device, and we wanted it to be email compatible. So we wanted to make sure that this was something that our students and our staff felt comfortable with and they could use. But probably one of the most important things, we wanted to make sure that it had an analytics tool so we can continuously use those analytics to make sure that we are doing a good job and to make sure that we can use this analytical data to improve. So it's going to be a continuous improvement process. In addition to the ticket system, we're going to also provide a help desk hotline We will have phone support where people will be, our students and our staff will be able to actually talk with one of our staff members. A lot of times, just a voice and having someone to explain their problem, we can solve that relatively easily with that phone call. But we're going to make sure that it's easily integration. We can easily integrate it to escalate that request to our ticket system, so we can also make sure that we can track that and, again, be able to use this analytical data to improve. And finally, we plan to work with our CTE programs to be able to reintroduce, because I understand that this district's done this once before in the past. We want to provide our students an opportunity to provide support, and our staff is going to work with the CTE programs to have student interns to be able to offer not only technical skills, to be able to do some customer service, and to be able to provide that online support and that technology support. And we have a staff member that's going to lead that initiative and work very closely with our CTE program. Next slide. I would also like to announce that with the technology that was mentioned in the presentation before, and the fact that we're dependent on technology so much now, especially with our new way of learning and having to offer virtual learning and blended learning, we are upgrading our bandwidth. Right now, we have 10 gigabits service coming into northern Granville, and then 1 gig that goes out to the schools. In 21-22, we plan to upgrade that so that we will have 10 gig not only coming into our district, but it will go throughout our school district. What this does, I think of it as the highway. So we're moving from the back road to the interstate, and we're going to be able to use that path to be able to provide that internet speed so that we will be more effective with our video driven curriculum, our online testing requirements, and our virtual learning tools. And the good news is, from a budget perspective, E-rate funding will pay 80% of that cost through our federal E-rate program. The exciting news in addition to that is that the North Carolina School Connectivity Initiative will pay the remaining 20%. That would be our local match. So the bottom line is that this increase in our service will have no impact on our budget as far as our local dollars are concerned. So we are very excited about that because we do depend on our internet and our bandwidth, and we feel that this will make a huge difference as we continue to use video-driven instruction and utilize the technology to provide instruction for our students. And finally, I wanted to give you a brief update on the RUS grant, the Rural Utility Service Grant. I'm very fortunate and excited to be able to walk into this school district, and because of the work of this district, a former director, and the technology team, that this grant is in place that will provide distance learning video conferencing equipment for our schools. The reason I'm bringing this up tonight is that this program was originally scheduled for 3 years, with last year being the first. Well, with COVID, there were a lot of problems. One, we were not able to have people come in and install this equipment. The second obstacle that we had is because so many people wanted equipment, and because you had the restrictions of COVID, some equipment was back ordered. And even if we had been able to get it in the school, the equipment was not available because it was back ordered. We talked with the grant officials, and we've been able to update this so that we can use a 2-year plan instead of a 3-year plan and be able to implement this effectively. So you can see here on the slide that year 1, 21-22, there's a list of schools that we will be able to put that equipment in place. Year 2 will be for the school year 2022-23, and you can see the second list of schools. So we're still in sync to be able to finish this up in 3 years. We're basically just having to combine year 1 and 2 and implement that equipment this year, or this coming school year. Any questions from me? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Connor.
Mr. Connor.
I'm sorry? Yes, sir.
Just curious, who's the service provider? Who's the internet provider?
The service provider is Spectrum.
Spectrum, okay.
Mr. Connor, thank you for your presentation. I particularly like the piece of utilizing our students and getting them access to that training, so that's great. And I do believe you've become Beth Day's favorite director with that zero budget impact.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next, Dr. McLean, is our middle school math curriculum adoption.
That's correct. It is time, and we will invite Dr. Meyer and Mr. Anthony Herndon to make this presentation.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And we are here for the middle school math curriculum adoption. June 30th of this year, the curriculum that we were currently using, which is HMH Go Math, is ending. So this year, we have went through a series of meetings, conversations, presentations, and things of that nature to prepare to choose and recommend to you guys a curriculum that we believe that will suit Granville County Public Schools. And you know, there are many things that are needed when we look at a curriculum, but one of the most important things is those math standards. Those standards tell us what students should know and what students should be able to understand and to do. We take that very seriously because the North Carolina Standard Course of Study is given unto us to help us reach the needs and meet the needs of students. Things that Granville County does do is prepare curriculum maps. We do that each year for our teachers, as well as giving them some materials that can be used to meet the needs of their students. With this particular one, we also know that professional development is very important. Teachers need to be acclimated with the new tool, be acclimated with the new resources so they can use them effectively. And what we had previously, we had Go Math digital and print resources. And so those things are what we're also looking for as well going forward. This right here, as you look on the screen, is the process which we went through. We chose 3 different curriculums. We looked at what Ed Report had to say and what those recommendations were, and we chose 2 out of those 3 to look at closely as a review team. The review team was made up of teachers, administrators, district personnel. All of those had feedback, conversation, input, and the decision that was made. Once a curriculum was chosen, the teachers went in and did a curriculum analysis, which means that they took the standards that North Carolina gives us, and they began to look to see if those standards were addressed in the resources and the materials that the provider had given us samples of. Thankfully, the one that we did choose was very much aligned to North Carolina standards, so we believe this is going to be a positive impact for our teachers and on our students. So the 3 that we did look at closely was Into Math, which is by Halston, Mifflin, and Harcourt. And then we also looked at Curriculum Associates, they're iReady, and we looked at Eureka Math Squared. The one that stuck out the most after the presentations was Go Into Math by HMH. Eureka Math Squared was a new program that they were implementing for the first time this year, and we did not want to, I would say, take a chance or be a part of just a growing or a learning perspective. We really needed something that when we get that materials, it is going to be beneficial and it's going to be helpful. So the one that the teachers chose and the administrators agreed with is the Into Math program. It does have a cost of that is more than I-ready, but if the district approves with the ELA, they're going to provide a discount on that as well. All right, so our recommendation is Into Math, 6th grade to 8th for middle school math. We believe that these materials are going to provide teachers a lot of needed resources that are ready-made that can be used to meet the needs of students.
Mr. Chair, this
Any
is
questions?
an action item.
All right. Board members, do you have questions for Mr. Herndon?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How closely or how smoothly will the transition be going from the K-5 current math program into this program? Do you feel that will work well?
Yes, ma'am. The current program that K-5 is using is Eureka Math, which is an excellent program that is really conceptual based. It develops the conceptual understanding of students. And this right here is just going to be something that the teachers can take and use to build on those skills and those concepts. So it really should not be a major shift, because what's really happening is that you have K-5 math, and then when you get into middle school math, it is a shift in itself. So the curriculum that we're choosing here is going to enable the teachers to have some ready resources to help students with differentiation, the L students, vocabulary. There's a lot of pieces that will be a added benefit to the teachers and to the students. Okay.
Good. Any other questions, board members? All right, you've heard the recommendation of staff that we adopt Into Math as our math curriculum for middle school. What would be the pleasure of the board?
Motion to accept as presented.
All right, we have a motion by Dr. McKnight. Do we have a second?
Second it.
I have a second by Ms. Williams. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Herndon. All right, Madam Superintendent, I believe we have middle school and 9th and 10th ELA curriculum adoption.
Yes, sir. This is also an action item this evening, and I invite Dr. Myrick as well as Dr. Felicia Whitaker to present this information tonight.
Good evening. So just as math, we are also looking at adopting information or new materials for our middle school ELA and our 9th and 10th grade ELA. Next slide, please. So we also, with ELA, provide curriculum maps, guidance on scope and sequence, essential questions, and lesson ideas. We also provide professional development currently for our teachers with the materials that we're using for ELA. Next slide. We looked at our data as well as expectations of MTSS to help guide us on finding a curriculum that would fit the needs of our district students and teachers for ELA. Next slide. Our process was similar to the process that Mr. Herndon and the math team used. We reviewed adopted products from the North Carolina Textbook Committee. We identified a curriculum review team. That team was made up of teachers, principals, and district staff. We met with representatives from 3 vendors for both middle and high school, and we observed each one in use. After observing those products in use, the curriculum review team members used a survey and ranked their top 2 options. We explored the pros and cons of each, and we also explored the financial feasibility with Dr. Meyer and Dr. Thompson. Next slide, please. For middle school, the curriculum that we considered were Into Literature, Benchmark Advance, Act Now, and Expeditionary Learning. And if you take a look at the slide, you can see some pros and cons of each one of those curriculum, as well as the cost. Next slide. For our high school curriculum, we also looked at into literature. We looked at My Perspective and Study Sync. Again, you will see some of the pros and cons for each one of those curriculum, as well as the cost. Grades 6 through 8 chose Into Literature for ELA curriculum. And we're really excited about that because it's going to bring consistency, because elementary students are already using Into Reading. 6-8 students using Into Literature is going to provide that consistency from elementary to middle school. Our 9th and 10th grade teachers chose Study Sync. Next slide, please. And if you look at this next slide, it breaks down our Into Reading or Into Literature cost for a 6-year adoption, as well as a payment proposal. Next slide. And this final slide breaks down Study Sync, a 6-year adoption, and payment proposal. Thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Whitaker? All right. Board, this does come to you as an action item. The staff has presented their recommendation to use Into Literature for grades 6 through 8 and Study Sync for grades 9 and 10. What would be the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Lebrecht to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Anderson. Is there any further discussion? All right, seeing none, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Whitaker. Madam Superintendent, our next item is the pandemic action response.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask Ms. Curtis to join us back at the podium. You've already heard a little bit of this evening, so we will take you through very swiftly. We did not invite our medical experts this evening because not much has changed since we last met, so we'll just give you some highlights tonight.
Thank you, Dr. McLean. Just a review of our most recent executive order. Face coverings are still required indoors in schools and we are recommended outdoors. You can view the entire executive order if you'd like. And just a review of our requirements for, again, cloth coverage required at all times when folks are indoors. There are exceptions for eating and folks that need accommodations. We're still screening adults, but not students. And we're still requiring physical distancing. We're continuing to follow the guidance provided in the Strong Schools Public Health Toolkit. A reminder from our folks at Granville Advanced Public Health, you can reach out to them on their hotline to schedule a vaccine appointment, and they even have some walk-up things available as well now, so that's a great resource. Our readiness indicators that we look at each month. First is our operational readiness. We are fully stocked with PPE. We are continuing our screening. We've now screened more than 240,000 adults this year. We're continuing to disinfect, and we're continuing to look at air quality interventions. As you can see, our isolation numbers for staff continue to rise, but have not been rising as quickly now that many of our staff have been vaccinated. So that is rising. Only 19 staff had to isolate in May, but that is continuing to increase. We are still looking for a substitute, so we'd love for you to reach out to our HR department if you are interested in subbing. A couple of highlights from our COVID metrics. Our percent positive tests in Granville County today were less than 1%, which is wonderful. And then our 14-day average is 2%. Granville County is falling down in that countywide alert system. There are 5 levels, and we are at the 4th level, which is great. We're light yellow, which means we're a moderate community spread at this time. Here's just a map of the state right now. So you can see there still are some hot spots, and we hope to stay at that low level and perhaps even get to that green soon. Here's our caseage by age for North Carolina, and you can see, again, we're continuing to see a low impact at the level of our students, but there is a large number of staff that could be impacted if you see that age range there. And here's our local data. This is actually the last week of school. I did not choose to display last week's. There was not a lot to see. But no new staff COVID cases, 2 new student COVID cases. The last week of school, we did have 4 staff in quarantine or isolation, and we did have 51 students in quarantine, which is quite a large number. When we do have a student COVID case, because so many folks are in contact with that student, we are having to quarantine or isolate a lot of students. So you still see that big impact when we do have those positive cases within our school. Next slide. Then over the last month, again, you see those staff COVID cases continuing to fall. Staff in quarantine and isolation continue to fall because many of them have been vaccinated. And again, those staff absences going down. But we are, again, continuing to see student COVID cases, so we're looking forward to our students being able to be vaccinated and continuing to see a rise in the number of students that are quarantined because they've been in close contact with their peers in school. You see our staff impact over time is falling. Again, the great impact of those vaccinations. But our student impact, you can see in the last month, we're still, again, having to quarantine and isolate a lot of students. Just a reminder, we talked about this, I believe, last month. We are, now that Summer Quest is beginning, going to align and change our quarantine guidance to align with the guidance from the CDC and Granville Advanced Public Health. They have suggested that students under the age of 10 only need to quarantine for 7 days with a negative test on day 5, or quarantine for 10 days without a test. So that is new guidance for students that are under the age of 10, or under the age of 10 only. Students that are 10 or older, and obviously our adults, will continue to follow the 14-day quarantine guidance from the CDC and Granville Advanced Public Health. Any questions?
Well, I'm curious why 10 years is the cutoff?
That is what the CDC and Granville Advanced Public
I
Health
just didn't know if there
told
was
us.
I just didn't know if you knew the reason. I was just
I'm sure there's a wonderful scientific reason that has to do with students that age not being as susceptible, but I do not know the specific reason.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, and to our board, I would just like to commend Ms. Lauren Curtis on her work with this area this year. Who knew that this would be a job? Who knew that I'd have to create a job description, to create a dashboard, to keep up with quarantine numbers, to create for us a way to visually document what is occurring at each and every school and to make it public each and every week, to keep up with the ABC Collaborative with me and what is occurring at DHHS. Who knew this was going to be a role necessary for our district? I certainly didn't when I tapped this young lady, but she has done this and has gone above and beyond, and I just publicly want to say thank you, Ms. Curtis.
Thank you.
Job well done.
Thank you. I'm not sure either of us knew what we were getting into with this.
Thank you so very much, dear.
Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, Ms. Curtis. Board members, it's 7:53. I'm going to announce a 5-minute break before we move on to our next section. So if you can be back here in 5 minutes, we'll prepare to get started with our district reorganization conversation. So we're taking a break.
Thank you, sir.
All right, board members, we're ready to come back together. Kevin, are you ready? All right. Next up is our district reorganization conversation. And I've asked Dr. McLean before we jump into the conversation to have a bit of a conversation regarding some program changes that are ultimately affected by some of this conversation. So I want to turn that over to her before she steps away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board members, as you know, you are working on building consolidation and closure matters. It is important you know that I, as superintendent, take the charge of internal reorganization and consolidation seriously as well. Restructuring our organization is critically important. So that is exactly what we are in the midst of doing, reorganizing. The staff and I have also focused energy on the acquisition of grant dollars to assist our district with programs and positions over the last 3 years at a tune of $5.5 million to help sustain our district, and we will continue to do our best to locate and identify those funds. As such, know that whenever we do this, this allows us to streamline resources in every imaginable way and to reduce reliance on local and state funds. So while you, our board, continue the work at hand, we are going to continue working internally. So tonight at your seats, you should have a document that looks like this. Please know we are in the backdrop working as a district to identify some neat programming opportunities for students if perhaps we find money savings. If money savings becomes a reality, you know some of these suggestions on this sheet from our task forces, from individuals, from educators, from literature, from conferences, ideas that are just some great food for thought that would be wonderful for our students in this community. If it becomes a reality, we know we can deliver to our students exactly what they need. Listen, you'll see on one half short-term implementation ideas, and on the other half, some long-term implementation ideas. Some of the short-term would consist of an evening academy, morning news studios at each schools, competency-based education, international baccalaureate at the middle school, of which we'd love to see expanded, freshman academy programs at our comprehensive high schools, soft skills courses for 9th and through 11th graders. But long-term, which could consist of some programming in the year 22 through 23, screen-less schools. One of you knows what that's about because we talked about it. International baccalaureate expansion, possibly Montessori schools, leadership academies, law and justice academies, pre-K centers, EL intake centers, dual language immersion, and on and on and on. I've attached some rough estimates just so you know we are working alongside you so that whenever we get to that point of which we're ready, we will be ready internally, Mr. Chair. So I just wanted to share a little of that. No need for discussion tonight, but I did want to throw that out so everyone knows we're working in concert with one another, even though this is not a part of the conversation yet.
All right. Thank you so much, Madam Superintendent. We're going to give you a moment to step away.
Thank you.
That sounds so odd to say. Board members, tonight we have the final drafts of our studies that have been presented to us. You have those in board docs. You also have paper copies at your seat. The revisions are there in different colors for you. You can see a key on your front of each study. Tonight in the staff presentation, they will not go through this entire study. What they will go through are the items that you particularly asked for in our question and answer time that they have found they cannot answer. Either the information doesn't exist or it's arbitrary that it wasn't factual. And so we're going to turn that over to the executive staff at this point. After that, we're going to have our architectural presentation where you'll be able to listen to Ms. Peel. And there'll be a Q&A time at the end of that, and then we'll have some decisions to make after that. So, executive team, if you are ready.
Yes, sir, Mr. Richardson. I'll start us off, and I'll let Ms. Day and Dr. Meyer jump in if they need to. But you'll see that we tried to make the additions easy to locate within the existing documents. For the two elementary schools, Creedmoor and Wilton, if you recall, we had made revisions to those back in the fall. And those revisions are in blue, and we left them there in blue. So you could tell that those were the first round of requests. Then the questions that you gave to us most recently were provided in a maroon, kind of dark red color. And so this document still is in effect a draft, as is indicated by the watermark. Of course, once you're ready, if you so desire for us to present this at a public forum, we would remove the draft and proceed. So I have here on the screen the list of questions that Ms. Shave was able to take at the last meeting. And we were able to answer all of the questions except for those highlighted in yellow. So if you would put your attention to the screen, for the Creedmoor Elementary study, question number 9 read, how do we look at the long and short-term effects of students based on school closing? After some dialogue and conversation, we just kind of felt like this was too much of a speculative, subjective question for us to answer without assuming a lot of different things. So we just left this one. I think that it could be answered in many different ways depending on who you asked. So, and what lens you would be looking through. So we did not take a stab at that one. And then number 12 for Creedmoor, why is there a decline in enrollment and what will happen over the next 5 years? Again, difficult to pinpoint the reason why without doing a lot of focus groups or surveys of individuals who've already left, and then trying to predict what might happen in the future, of course, would just be completely subjective on our part. And then why can't the school attract more students for the arts program? Again, just very difficult for us to answer. It would just be speculation. For the Wilton Elementary study, number 4, a similar sort of question. Do we know where students would migrate and why? Again, just difficult to point to specific facts for individual cases. And then there were no questions that we could not answer for Granville Central. So you will find the rest of these answered in the maroon color in the table of content portion that it belonged. For example, if there was a question about choice program, you would find it under the category, the heading of choice programs. So wherever these answers belonged is where we put them in the study. So we're happy to take any specific questions about anything that you may have reviewed already and try to clarify if possible.
All right, board members, any questions? All right, thank you, staff. What will happen at these point with these is after our presentation with the architect, there'll be some decisions for the Tar River study that is still forthcoming, and then we will also make a decision based on the timeline that was set forth and when we would schedule a public hearing, those kind of items, but we'll talk about that in just a few moments. Next, we have our architectural presentation by Ms. Peel. Dr. Winborn, you want to lead off with that?
Yes, sir. Ms. Peel, if you would come to the podium, please. I would first like to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Catherine Peel and her colleagues for taking on this difficult work on such short notice and meeting our deadline. We so appreciate it. I know that you guys had to pull out all the stops, and I just thank you very much for that. I'm going to pull the digital version of the presentation up. Give me just one moment. And Mr. Perry, if you would, while I'm doing that, could you pass out these hard copies so each worker can have one? Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Good evening, board members, Dr. McClain. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to provide a study of the Tar River Elementary School and the idea of potentially converting it to GC Holly Middle School. You've got a copy of the presentation because some of these numbers may be a little hard to see up on the screen. Next slide, please. So here were the key considerations that we looked at in converting this school over to a middle school. First, we utilized the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, their guidelines and their standards and recommendations for a 650 student middle school. And that includes the total number of required classrooms as well as specialty classrooms that you have at middle school, science labs and vocational exploratory classes. So that's one key difference between an elementary and a middle school. As students get into middle school, they're changing classes, they're getting into the sciences and looking at, and other kinds of classes like keyboarding. And those class sizes are typically bigger in square footage. We also looked at the core facilities, the square footage, so areas such as the media center and the cafeteria could accommodate this number of students at the school. Next slide. Another really key consideration is the plumbing fixture count, and will it be to code? And also the fixture heights, because if you think about it, Tar River, you've got little kids and you have little sinks and little water closets, and so when you go to middle school, all of that has to go up to adult size. I'm sure you've seen some 10, 11, 12-year-olds that are the size of football players, right? So they can't use the little tiny fixtures. The other issue is that at an elementary school in kindergarten and first grade, you have a requirement for a toilet room within the classroom. And again, these are the little small toilets. Those would not be appropriate at all for middle school kids. You don't want middle school students going to the bathroom in the middle of class. That just would not be a good thing. So we would have to take those away and then accommodate the fixture count in other places in the school. Another key consideration is this is going to go again from a little kid school to big kid school, and so you want it to look like a middle school. You don't want to have kid-like graphics or colors. You would want to bring in the GC Holly middle school identity with signage. Furniture sizes are different. Again, little kid furniture. We could potentially bring furniture over from GC Holly or other locations. And then a big thing is just the PE and competitive sports fields for middle school versus what you have, which is just an existing elementary school playground with playground equipment. So those are the key factors that we looked at. Next slide. So this is the existing floor plan of Tar River Elementary School. On the upper part, you see the kindergarten and first grade wing. Those classes are a little bit bigger square footage than a standard classroom because they do centers, and with the young kids, they have a lot more furniture and a lot of different setup and equipment. Those run around 1,100 square feet, so they are appropriate for some of the bigger size spaces that we need for science and exploratory classrooms. Lower side is the second and third grade wing, and to your right in the purple is the admin space up at the top, the media center, the multi-purpose room that's attached to the cafeteria and has a movable wall, and your school kitchen at the lower end on the right. Next plan, second floor, there is a second floor on that far wing to the south, and that is the fourth and fifth grade wing with those classrooms and resource space at that school. So if we go over then to next slide, and this is going to be hard to read unless you sort of look at it close up with the numbers that you have in front of you. This is a spreadsheet that compares, the column on the left shows what is required for a 650 student capacity middle school, of the total number of spaces and the square footage of each of those spaces. And to the far right, it shows Tar River Elementary School, the actual square footages of what they have for things like classroom space, media center, et cetera. The good news is that the classroom count really lines up pretty well to accommodate really what we would need for a middle school of this size. One consideration is that there is only one music classroom here, and we really would need a larger music classroom to accommodate instrumental music, just with the storage that you need for band. So you'll see as we get to the floor plans, we propose to provide one larger music classroom that could accommodate both the vocal and instrumental music at this school. So the square footage is, again, if you look to the right, you'll see that some of them are in the red, that they aren't quite the square footage of some of the recommendations. Again, you can see instrumental music is one of the big ones that is not there now at Tar River, that's 1,600 square feet. So the total square footage of classroom space is a little bit under at about 3,500 total in terms of square footage. We have enough classrooms, but the square footages are a little low in some areas. The media center, the large reading room space, is a little small. It's still bigger actually than GC Hawley's existing space, and there's a bit of a deficit on the support space for the media center. Dining room, the cafeteria, again, you can see the dining space is about 524 square feet under what is recommended. However, this dining room space is actually about the same size as GC Hawley. So even though it's not up to recommendation, it's about the size of what they have now. If you flip to that next page, PE, there is a separate auxiliary gym building at this school. It's about 7,700 square feet. So the gym itself, again, is a little bit under, about 75% of what you would normally have for middle school. We do have 2 classrooms out in that building that could work well for health and PE, and those are actually at a good size. There is not an auditorium at this building. Of course, there's not an auditorium at GC Hawley currently, but you do have a multi-purpose room that has seating. It's a little bit under, it seats for about 320. The stage is not quite as big as recommended, but again, that is a space that you do have. And then admin space is pretty close on about 1,800 square feet under, again, what's recommended. So net square feet for this building is about 9,500 square feet less than the state's recommendation for a school of this size. Again, we can accommodate all of the program, it's just in spaces that are a little bit smaller. So if you flip to the next page, so this is how we would propose to lay it out. That upper wing would, because we have the larger classes there, we would put the science labs and then exploratory vocational classrooms in that wing. We would, as you see the blue sort of rectangle there in the middle, that's where we could combine the 2 classes to create a larger music room. And then the lower wing would be 6th grade and partial 7th grade, and then the next slide shows you on that second floor would be the rest of the 7th grade and the 8th grade. So that is how we would propose to accommodate the program at the school. The next slide shows you that auxiliary gym building. Again, it has 2 classrooms that we would use for health and PE. It's got a large restroom and some storage and mechanical space. This building currently is not air conditioned. So if you want to take a look at the site, well, here's first of all, so the required building modifications, we would be renovating 11 classrooms to accommodate the science labs and exploratory programs. We would remove the K1 toilet rooms and convert those over to storage and science prep rooms. You've got classroom cubbies in all of these classrooms, and that's not something that middle school kids would use. These are the little cubbies for the little jackets, and so it would probably make more sense to take that out to have the square footage in the classrooms. Maybe you could use those in another school. We will need to add a toilet room on that science exploratory wing. Once we take out the K1 classroom toilets, we're going to need to have a small toilet room there to get the proper distance for handicap accessibility. You have to have an ADA toilet within 200 feet of any point in the building, and so if we don't put a small toilet room there, then that classroom wing would be out of compliance. We would also be raising the plumbing fixtures to adult heights throughout the building. Combining the 2 existing classrooms to renovate it for a larger music classroom, update the paint, the signage, and the graphics for GC Hawley Middle School, and then potentially new furniture to get to adult sizes. And again, you may be able to reuse some furniture from Hawley or from some other locations, but you're likely going to have to buy some new furniture for this school. So moving on to the site, this is an aerial view. You can see the school there in the middle. To the right of the bus parking lot is the location of that auxiliary gymnasium I was mentioning. And to the left of the school is the existing playground, and it has playground equipment and it has paved play areas. But again, it doesn't have any sort of field for middle school sports. You will note that the acreage of the property that the school is on is 26 acres. There is an adjacent piece of property just to the east that is owned by Granville County Schools, and I believe it may have been purchased at the same time as perhaps the elementary school site was purchased, and I don't know if anybody has the history on that, but again, another 19 acres there, and so that would be a potential area to locate middle school ball fields, so a football field with a track, baseball field, and a field house. And again, those are standard athletic field recommendations from Department of Public Instruction for middle school. So if you look at this next slide, again, to the left of the school, we would take out the playground equipment and the paved play areas and sort of regrade that area and regrass it for a soccer field. And then to the east of the school, you can see approximate location of a baseball field and a football field with a track and a small field house. That site to the east has got a lot of grade change, but the area that we've identified is sort of the flattest part of the site that we feel that could be graded to create these fields. So next slide. And I do want to say that these are very high-level, rough cost estimates. Again, we just had a couple of weeks, so we didn't have we haven't done any design work. It's just, really back of the envelope estimates here. So for the building costs, the estimate of all the building improvements would be a little over $1.7 million. The site improvements, if you only remove the playground equipment and created just the soccer field, would be about $200,000. So if you add in fees and contingency at 15%, sort of the base estimated cost in 2021 dollars would be around $2.2 million to make these changes. Again, as I mentioned, we haven't done any design work yet, and these costs are estimates and would have to be updated as the design progresses. The next slide shows you additional considerations. If you air condition that auxiliary gym, you're looking at around $750,000. To build the new middle school athletic fields, baseball, football field with track, and a field house, we're looking at around $1.4 million for all of that. So if you added all of that up together, you're looking at around $4.4 million to do everything on the wish list to bring this school into alignment with what the state's recommendations would be for a 650 student middle school. And then the next slide just really is those final conclusions, is that it can accommodate the GC Holly population with those proposed modifications, accepting that we will have some square footage that's under the recommendations. You obviously have the additional cost to provide those competitive athletic fields on site, and a decision of whether or not to air condition the auxiliary gym. And then you have another question of consideration: would you play your competitive sports and games at other campuses rather than coming in and building the football field and the baseball field at this campus? And then the next slide just shows what the potential project schedule would be. If you got started by this fall with design, could have the project ready to bid by probably early spring. Renovation could start next summer, as well as the site construction work. It's more work than you could get done in one summer. So you would have to relocate those Tar River students to other elementary schools fall of 2022. And the construction for this conversion to a middle school, you might be able to get it done by January 2023, so you could potentially do a mid-year move of the GC Holly students, or wait until the fall of 2023 to move those students. So I know that's a lot of information I went through pretty quickly, but just want to open it up for questions.
All right, board members, we want to do like we've done for these conversations. We'll go around the table. If you have comments or questions, actually, let's just kind of keep it at questions for Ms. Peel now, and then we'll come back and do comments after that. Ms. Anderson, would you like to begin? Any questions?
still just looking, no, not right now.
Okay, we'll come around again
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Ms. Williams?
Were you looking at classroom space based on 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, correct?
Yes,
Okay. So if you had more or less grades, that would be an adjustable.
absolutely.
Correct.
Dr. McKnight? Mr. Excuse me, Mr. Peace?
I'm still trying to absorb this cost.
Okay. Ms. LeBret?
No question.
Houlihan? Ms. Peel, does the auxiliary gym take into account having locker rooms for it being a middle school?
We talked about that, of whether to add that or not. I mean, at middle school, you could potentially get away with not having full locker rooms. There are restrooms there, so it would be a question that we looked at a field house, actually, instead of going to try to go in and renovate the auxiliary gym.
So, as far as PE classes, how would that work?
Middle school kids do not,
Do they not do
change
that?
out
Okay.
for PE.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my other question, so looking back at these square footages, and I see your consideration on the last page that basically we're going to make the choice if we go this route that some spaces, some classrooms will be smaller than what is typically there.
Yeah, for standard.
Okay.
But I will tell you, I mean, a lot of GC Hawley's classrooms are undersized now,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
you know,
and
they
that-
don't meet recommendation either, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. We ready to go back around, or how do you want to proceed? Do you feel like you have all your questions from the architect answered? Ms. Peel, would you mind staying just for a few moments?
Absolutely.
We'll
Be
do
happy
some
to.
comments, and
Yes.
then just in case a question of expertise pops up.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, so now, board members, if we want to go around, just kind of what your initial thoughts, comments may be. Again, remembering this was presented as an option for a study. This is just looking at the architectural side of things. Of course, there is the other aspects that the staff would need to gather for you. So, Dr. Houlihan, do you want to start with any kind of comments?
On one hand, it wasn't as much as I thought it might be. On the other, to do it all the right way would be obviously much more expensive. I don't have a whole lot of questions other than, could this not, the building and so on and so forth, could that not be done over a multi-year period? In other words, we know we got to do the plumbing and some of those kind of things. Could that be done? I mean, it would be interesting to see what would happen if we could do that in terms of funding. But on the other hand, given what's going on, I expect that's probably not even worth it. So bottom line is, this is very helpful to me. I am very glad now, after all said and done, that we did this, because had we not, there would always be lingering questions about, we didn't really look at this. So, I mean, it's a possibility, but it is what it is, so.
Okay. All right. Ms. LeBret?
I guess my only kind of comment is that I'm just going to make as far as this is concerned. I mean, we're looking at, to do it right, 4 point whatever that million, right? So I guess my thing is, any elementary school that we would close and potentially sell the property, I would like to see us use that money wisely and put it towards other buildings that desperately need the upgrades, because I guess I look at it and think, Tar River is what, the newest of all of them? And so we're gonna turn around and put that money into the newest school when Lord knows we've got a ton of other buildings that could desperately use whatever money we potentially get. and help to upgrade those schools. So that's just.
Mr. Peace?
Yes, sir. My concern has to do with the number of students we have in the 5 elementary schools in the northern part of the county, which amount to around 1,000. Their schools, if you look at all of them, they will accommodate another 1,000 kids, pretty close, pretty much. So when we're gonna have to do something with elementary schools. And the only thing that I see that we could possibly do with them is close 1 or 2 of them. And when we do that, I would assume that we would do something with those properties, sell them, or, I mean, it wouldn't be no point in keeping them. And so my thing would be to use that money to do what we are talking about doing at Cloud River. Of course, the air conditioning, the gym, and building athletic fields is not something that we has to desperately do initially, because Hall is just a rock throw up the road that still use their football field and their athletic fields, really. So I haven't written off the idea of moving it to Tar River yet.
All right. Dr. McKnight?
Much like what Dr. Houlihan said earlier, I was surprised that the price wasn't as much as I thought it was going to be. However, in the same train of thought, I think if we were to go down this path, you'd want to do it the right way. It doesn't make sense to me to do a lateral move, to move kids out of Hawley in a building that's already too small, to move them to another building that would already be too small when they walk in the door. So for me, at $4.3 million, I just think we could use money wisely somewhere else besides pursuing this. But I am glad we did do this to answer some questions. I just don't see $4.3 million coming out of fund balance, I guess. I don't know where we get that from, or bake sale to do this. I don't know.
She'll never tell you.
Ms. Williams?
I'm sort of like everybody else. I'm surprised it was not more, and I realize that amounts are very fluid nowadays in today's economy. But I too am glad we did this, because I feel like we need those answers. It was my understanding, and I don't know if I read it, heard it, or whatever, that initially when Tar River was built and the land was purchased, there was the idea that maybe there would be a lot of growth and there would be a need to add on or build something else. But that was interesting that we do have that nice track beside us. I am of the opinion that we don't need to get in a too big of a hurry. We need to look at the different options, and we need to look at it from the lens of what we think is going to be the best for our students. And I don't think tonight we have time to really do that, but I'd like to keep that option as an open option at this point.
Okay. Ms. Williams? Or Anderson, I'm sorry.
I was going to ask her to take that again.
That's fine.
I promise I'm here and paying attention.
That's okay. And, I tend to agree with, some of the discussions that we have just been having, or the comments being made by my fellow board members. That study, I had expected it to be a little bit, higher too. So, but yes, I really think that we need to look this. This was a great study, and then just looking at, the closing Holly and, putting it at this location, or, it's still some more things that I would just like to look at based on the study, and I think that we're headed in the right direction. But just like my member said earlier with regards to moving the membership number of folks from the Holly to a school that's really small, and if there is a growth, then we're definitely looking at more things that has to occur there. I did understand that you stated that 19 acres is already owned by the, and it's just been there for that time frame, but, that's a good thing to know as well. But at this point, I'm not really sure that the number of folks there at Holly going to Tar River and the size of it would be accommodating for future growth, or would that figure definitely would go up if it, with the future growth there that would possibly come to Tar River.
All right, board members, any further comments or questions before we move on? All right, Ms. Peel, thank you so much. Thank you to your company for working so hard to get this done so quickly.
Ms. Peel, I'll be in touch, okay?
All right, board members, at this point, we need to make a couple decisions. I want to give you the caveat of reminding you, we have decided that we would have a work session for board members on Thursday at 2 o'clock at the Cobb Center. And the intention of that will be to get into small groups to discuss the consolidation effort, come up with scenarios related to the studies if there are further conversation around that, to be able to proceed forward. What I'd like to bring to you now is we kind of need to decide a few things. You have requested a study on Tar River. You have gotten part of the architectural study piece of it. Do you want staff to continue to put together a full-blown closure study? And let me give you the caveat of that. We are at year end for not only academics, but also finance, and that's where this information is going to come from. So keep it in mind that it's going to be a little difficult for them to turn that around quickly for us. Or do you decide from this architectural report that you no longer wish to study that? And if so, we'll continue on the timeline we are. If we do decide that we want to proceed with the Tar River study, I would suggest that we amend our timeline that you approved several weeks ago. So kind of at this point, just kind of what is the general thought from the board? Ms. Williams? Sorry.
I'm trying to remember what my name is.
I don't know who anybody is.
Is it possible for us to sort of table that decision till Thursday when we have a chance to talk more?
So you can.
Just asking.
Yeah, you can.
Could I say that just a different way?
Yep.
We can set the timelines, but I think it's really important that if it takes more than what we do Thursday for us to feel comfortable and good, let's not put ourselves in a box where we can't do that because we said we were going to do this. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
What I would say to that is that at some point we need to agree on a timeline because the public is waiting for us. And we have been down the road before where we didn't set timelines and they just kind of languished. You had something to say, Ms.
Well, I suppose it's a question about the idea of making decisions on Thursday. At this time, what's been noticed for Thursday is just an idea session, and there hasn't been public notice that any decisions would be made. So if you do want to consider making some of those decisions, I do think that we would need to update we would need to, put that in your public notice.
Are we past the point of being able to do that?
No, you just have to do it 48 hours in advance, so we could do it tomorrow.
Okay. All right. What seems to be your thought or consensus?
I'd like to throw out there that we remove Tar River from this study. Based on what we've seen, I don't know. I'm to the point where I'm ready to start eliminating some things and trying to get focused on this a little bit more. And I just see this as one of those that we could eliminate or take off the table.
Okay.
Could he repeat? I didn't understand the first part. of what
Can you
said.
take your?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying that I think I would like to see us remove Tar River from this, take that off the table so that we can focus in a little bit more on the other studies that we start to look at, just based on the timing for converting Tar River, looking at the price. I just feel like this is one we can just go ahead and remove.
Are you putting that in the form of a motion?
Motion to remove Tar River from consideration.
So we'll make sure we're right. All right, so we have a motion by Dr. McKnight to remove Tar River out of consideration of closure study. Do we have a second for that?
Second.
All right, we have a second by Ms. LeBrecq. All right, what discussion do you have?
Sir, I just still feel like it needs to be in the study because I just haven't been able to get my arms around what we're going to do with the practically 1,000 kids that we have capacity for in those elementary schools. And at some point, we started down this road because we needed to close some because we had all this space. And we are going to have to move beyond where we are because we got more elementary schools than we need. Actually, as a matter of fact, we got 2 more than we need.
Okay. Any other comments, thoughts?
I was just going to say, I don't know that I don't disagree with that statement.
What don't you agree with?
I just don't think that converting Tar River, I don't think that getting rid of Tar River as an elementary school is the answer to that, to our.
So which brings up the point that I'm coming from is we got too many.
Right, I just don't think.
So, and we haven't gotten around, we got things on 2 right here. So that's my point of view.
I guess one question I would have would be, is where do we stand to try to find the money if this is a direction we're trying to head? And I know Dr. Houlihan and I have had that conversation and everything, but I'm just not quite sure where we'll find it from. Even if we were to find another property that we're going to sell, you can't start a process until that money's in hand, I would think. And so do we push this down the road even longer, waiting to gain money that we don't have a guarantee that we get yet? Yes, sir.
What about, and I'm just for the sake of asking this, we have a fund balance of roughly $6 million, which is more than enough to pay for the work at Tar River. So we wouldn't have to worry, I don't think, about what you're talking about in terms of selling a business or school and getting the money in the bank. I'm just saying that we would have the money.
So we would, I guess my question would be is, so we deplete fund balance because we could, if we did sell a property, we couldn't put that money back in our fund balance, is that correct? It's a different type of fund balance?
Yes, there's a local fund, I think you're referring to local fund balance.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the sale of a property, the funds would go into the capital outlay fund. That's correct.
So it would be two different things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would just be my concern, because I kind of got the feeling from our liaison meeting, they weren't the least bit entertained by this thought today. So I don't know that they're going to step up real quickly to help us.
And to be clear, you could use your capital outlay fund to renovate a school. It's just that the money, you only have, the 6 million isn't in capital outlay.
Okay, that's, yeah, okay, thank you.
My concern is the same as what you expressed. I'm not saying that it is the thing to do to convert Tar River. It very well may be not the thing to do. I just feel like that we have some discussions that we may want to bat around, and I think I personally want to feel like that's still an option, and look at it and the pros and cons of the different scenarios that may come up. And I don't want to be in the box where it's, somebody says, well, we've taken that off. Well, we put it back on. That was my concern.
All right. Any further discussion?
Just one, so if we vote on this tonight, and it passes, then does that mean that automatically when we meet on Thursday, this is off the table?
Yes, sir. Because what we are going to work towards on Thursday is coming up with scenarios dealing with the active closure studies. So if this stays on the table, then that's part of your scenario. If it doesn't, it takes it off of those scenarios.
Okay.
So, any further comments before we vote?
Well, I would just like to say, and I'm listening to the comments here, haven't had this study accomplished, and looking at the pros and cons that we're looking at, and what we just mentioned about if you take it off the table tonight, then it's not going to be, we would vote that, and you can't consider it. Yet we're going to be having a working session on Thursday that no telling back and forth what will be the case, and why take the other one off the table, and then there is possibly oh, well, in that case, that could have been the, what we should have looked at. So my recommendation is, although from what I'm seeing with the study, and we just got it tonight, I still say let's just hold on to it and keep it in that work session, and then we can actually vote it out at that time if that's what we so want to do, but not just throw it out right now just by what we just received this evening and looked at right now.
I have a quick question, because you were saying about the end of the fiscal year is coming up, so I didn't quite understand.
So what I meant by that is just, so our executive team is the group that puts our main closure studies together. Okay. And with us, with the fiscal year approaching, that swamps Ms. Day. Oh, not to mention the academic and the operations side and stuff like that. I was just making a point of, it's not going to get turned around in 2 weeks. It'll be after, more than likely, I would say a fair statement to be after the fiscal year. So we're into July. Okay. I just want to make sure that we understand that as we make that decision. All right, there's no other comments. If you're ready to vote. So restating the motion, Dr. McKnight made a motion, seconded by Ms. LeBrecq, that we would take the closure study of Tar River Elementary School off of the table. So all those in favor, if you raise your hand. All right. And all those opposed, if you'll raise your hand. Okay. All right, motion fails. All right, so at this point, this is left on the table. What I would like to do, with your permission, is if we, yes, ma'am.
But we're not necessarily saying they go ahead at this point with any more.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say.
Okay.
Is with your permission, we would ask the attorney to amend the notice that would allow us to make a decision on Thursday night if this comes off the table or not. And so we can instruct the staff on whether they would proceed with that, and we would also amend our timeline that evening. Is the board in agreement to that?
If we do that, make it, amend it for a decision, are you thinking that we may come out of there with a final decision?
Absolutely not, no, because we still have the public hearing and.
Well, what I mean is that we could, okay, but it wouldn't be a decision. I was going to say we could get somewhere that's pretty final if we get, okay, but it won't be.
You could narrow it down.
One scenario
Right.
instead of like
Yeah.
3 or 5.
Okay.
You can
Great.
narrow it down to just one
Great, thank you.
option that you want to have a hearing on. Or you could have a hearing on more than one option, but, yeah, either way.
Now, what I would like to ask, okay, so that's the first piece of what I'm wanting you to consider, is that we allow the attorney to amend the notice, that we will make a decision about the Tar River study, as well as amend our timeline that evening if needed. So is everybody kind of in agreement with that?
Yeah.
Is that a consensus? Okay. So attorney, if you will take care of that for us tomorrow
Okay.
morning. The second thing I'd like to throw out is, how do you feel about putting the public hearings back on the calendar for our original dates and still do it the way we had talked about, an elementary hearing and a secondary hearing? At those hearings, have the, well, never mind, because they may not, if Tar River's on it, then they won't have a final study. So never mind. Okay. Anything else about reorganization or consolidation? Okay. So if you remember that we will meet Thursday, 2 o'clock at the Cobb Center, and come ready to work. All right. Next, we'll give the superintendent a moment to come back. Thank you for your work on that, everybody. Welcome back. All right, our next item is our spring 2021 policy updates. You remember this is part 2. We had been sent over several policy updates from the North Carolina School Boards Association. And so there was quite a bit of reading there for that. Again, these come to you as a first read tonight. So we have 2 ways we can handle it. The first read, if you have any questions tonight that staff need to answer for you, or anything that you have consideration that you would like for them to work on, now's the time for that. Or if you so choose, you can waive the second reading and take action on these policies tonight. That is up to you. So first I'd like to ask is, do you have any questions regarding the policies first?
I have a question. Is the staff recommending, because there's a chart here that shows the recommended and required updates. Is the staff recommending that all updates be adopted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Given that some of these are substantive updates and that there's a lot of them, I would counsel against waiving second reading.
Okay. Board members, do you have questions for the staff regarding the policies as they stand? All right. This does constitute a first read, and so if you do not take if you go against the advice of counsel and you take action, then if not, then these will come back to you at the next meeting. Will this be on the 29th or will this be in August?
We were trying to get them in before August.
So
But
29th?
we can bring them back on the 29th if council recommends.
Is that okay? We bring back June 29th?
Yes, as long as it's on the,
Okay.
agenda 2 days before.
So board members, the second read of these will be on the June 29th meeting. And so these will be back there for you to read again. All right. Next, we move into the finance portion of our meeting. And Madam Superintendent, I believe we have a COVID funds update.
Yes, we do.
Absolutely. Ms. Beth Day and Dr. Pauletta Thompson will conduct this portion of the meeting.
Good evening, board members. Included in board docs tonight as information is a COVID funds update. This is actually information that is on the DPI website. They've begun including this information so you can get up-to-date additional information on the website that is listed on board docs. But it includes the funds, all of our COVID funds, and where we stand as of April 30th. And I just kind of walk you through what it looks like, and I'll be including this as information on a monthly basis for the board. The first page includes the different programs that we received the COVID funds in and the amounts that have been spent. There is a column for fiscal year 2020 year-to-date expenditures because some of the funds we received and were able to begin spending in the last fiscal year, and then a column for the 2021 year-to-date expenditures, and then a total of that, and then our total allotment. So you can see what the balance is by those different programs. I would just mention that there are 24 programs that we received funding in, and this is specific about, each program has different compliance requirements and different allowable uses of those expenditures. So that is the first page, and then there's a graph that's included as well of the percentages of the funds that have been spent. And then the next portion is how were those funds, the next page is how were those funds spent by the object, the type of expenditure. So you can see, again, this is that same information. It's given it to you by the program that it was spent and allotted from, and then also by the type of expenditure. So those match. But again, expenditures for fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021 are included. I'll be glad to take any questions. And Dr. Thompson is here as well for any questions. She's associated with many of those 23 programs.
I will just add, as you see, board members, there are a lot of details associated with these dollars we receive. As Mrs. Day said, this is on the website for everyone to see. So as questions come your way, feel free to ask us, but a lot of this is public information. There's a lot of governance to these dollars. I'd like to commend Dr. Pauletta Thompson and Ms. Day both for their work with making certain we remain compliant.
All right, thank you so much. Hey, don't go anywhere. Got a budget resolution for the year-end budget adjustments.
Yes. Board members, this is something that the board has approved the last couple of years. Our attorney has brought this to us as a suggestion that other districts have used in the past, and so we have used this in the last couple of years. But what it does is it gives authority to Dr. McLean to sign off on any budget amendments after the board meets. And so I will bring to you on June 29th the latest and the greatest budget amendments at that time. But I have done this job enough to know that things happen on June 30th after that happens. So if something were to happen afterwards, that would allow Dr. McLean to sign off on that, but then me to report that back to the board at the next meeting.
Okay, board members, this comes to you as a recommendation from the staff and the superintendent. What would be the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion, we approve that as Ms. Day's presented it.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Williams and a second by Mr. Peace. Is there any further discussion? New board members, do you kind of understand what's going on?
I think so.
Basically, where you approve amendments, this is giving them the authority to move forward through the end of the year. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed. All right. Guess who's next? You have an interim budget resolution?
So, board members, and this is the interim budget resolution. The last, every year I've been here, this is how we've done the beginning of the budget year prior to us having a state budget, is that the board approve an interim budget resolution. So it allows us to continue operations based on the budget that we have now once we cross over into the new fiscal year. And then it also allows for us to develop a budget resolution once we actually have a state budget, or we have information from DPI as far as not having a state budget and what our allotments are going to look like. It allows us to operate until that time, until the board is able to approve a budget resolution. So again, this is similar recommended language from the attorney on an interim budget resolution.
Hey, I'm sorry. All right, so board members, do you have any further questions for Ms. Day?
I make a motion that we approve the interim budget resolution.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Peace to approve the interim budget resolution. Do we have a second by Ms. LeBrecq? Do we have any further questions? All right, seeing none, if you're ready to vote, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, Ms. Day, you have budget amendments?
Board members, you have budget amendments for several funds this evening. The first being the state fund, and this is budgeting for a couple of things. One thing that it is doing is it allowing us to carry over some of our textbook funds with that's really important in the new curriculum that was just approved tonight, preserving those funds in future year to be able to pay for those type of expenditures. It is also budgeting additional funds for summer reading camp, $209,000, exceptional children's fund, $64,789, transportation fund, $6,000, and early grade reading proficiency, $481. So the net of that is a reduction in budget of $102,000 of our current state budget, but as I said, it is allowing us to carry over those state textbook funds. So the amended budget is $52,913,325. The second fund is for the local fund, and this is neither an increase nor decrease to the total budget, but is within departmental budgets or school budgets as requested. So those are a few adjustments there. The third budget amendment is for the federal grants fund, and this is a big one, and it is budgeting some of those funds that Dr. Thompson talked about and has worked really hard for our district for, as well as a few other things. So it is budgeting for a child nutrition equipment grant that Ms. Crute received for our district, $13,841. 6B handicap funds, $11,456. Additional 21st century funds, $193,000, and then the ESSER 2 funds, $5,948,732, and then the ESSER 3 funds, $13,325,859. So the total of all of that is an additional $19,493,515, and it does bring our total federal budget up to $28,151,244. The last budget amendment is for the other restricted fund, and this is budgeting a couple of things: some funds received for student incentives, recycling funds received, Medicaid funds of $111,544, EC reimbursement funds received. So the total increase in the other restricted fund budget, $113,696. So for a total budget of $4,118,601. I'd be glad to take any questions.
Any questions? Okay. This comes to you as an action item tonight. Board, what is your pleasure?
Move be approved.
All right, we have a motion by Dr. Houlihan to approve the budget amendments as presented. Do we have a second? Have a second by Dr. McKnight. Do we have any further questions or discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Ms. Day?
Board members, financial update and board travel as of April 30th, 2021. We are 83% through the fiscal year as of April 30th, and our expenditures are within budget and our percentages are in line. On the board travel document, our total budget for board travel for 2021, $6,424. Expenditures as of April 30th, $4,533.99. So a remaining balance of $1,890.01. I will make mention, this is something that will be brought to you at a future meeting, but in May, there were expenditures for the spring law conference that will come from that balance. I just want to make sure that you knew that that was out there, but that was paid in the month of May instead of not in the month of April. I'd be glad to take any questions.
Ms. Day, before you move on board, I want to remind you, we had a conversation last meeting about when we had the architects do the presentation on, or how that would be paid for. We originally talked about coming from this account. Originally, we used the number that we had at that point. At this point, that is, Dr. Winmore, what's the total of that cost of study?
We haven't been invoiced yet, but it was not to exceed 12,000.
Okay, so 12,000, that is coming from Dr. Winborn's budget at this moment, and so I want to make you aware of that, and want to make sure that you're okay with that, or if you would like to take that from fund balance, just knowing that we originally had talked about that.
Dr. Winborn have the money in his accounts to pay for it?
It's obviously going to take away from something he's got planned to do, though.
I believe he can handle it.
Okay. I disagree with you, but okay.
He haven't said he couldn't handle it.
Sorry.
He haven't said he couldn't handle it.
Well, yeah, I doubt he's going to either. Okay, I just wanted to bring that to your attention. All right. Ms. Day, if you'll continue.
Board members, the next item is for the insurance providers. This is something I bring each June to you to prepare for the next fiscal year. And so included on this document is our current provider for these different types of insurance, what our current premium is, expiring premium in 2021, and what the proposed premium is for 21-22. So I will point out a couple of things. The property insurance is an increase. There was a change in the way that they calculate the property insurance. It was calculated on a 90% of our value and is now being calculated on 100%, which resulted in an increase in our premium. The workers' comp insurance is based on, one of the big factors associated with that is the experience modification number that is done by the state based on our risk assessment, and our number increased, which is not a good thing, which in turn increases our premium. And so we did experience an increase in premium. So what I'm bringing to you tonight is a change in our local workers' comp provider for 21-22 to Liberty Mutual. EMC was a larger increase in premium. So Surrey Insurance got 3 quotes from us for our workers' comp, and the premium that is being recommended is the lower of the 3 that they came back. But it is an increase of $20,000 in premium for workers' comp. So that is significant. It's also an increase in vehicle liability, which is based on the vehicles, the items that we are insuring. I would point out to you one positive bright spot is that the catastrophic athletic high school insurance that the North Carolina High School Association let us know that they would be covering that cost that we have in the past had to pay. And so that is $2,235 that we had paid in the past for that insurance that will be covered by the High School Athletic Association for 21-22. But I'll be glad to take any questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Day, on the workers' comp, is that been going up periodically anyway, or is this from a large type of thing? Will it be with us a while, I guess is what I'm asking.
Right, so it's kind of hit us. So our experience mod in 2020 was 1.13, and in 2021 is 1.36. So it's the 21 year coming on, which, as you know, it'll be 3 years. You know, it'll stay with us for the 3 years. And I've asked the insurance company to give me some information of comparing us to other school systems and, you know, as far as experienced mods are concerned. And I know they have resources to help support us in making sure that we're doing everything we can to keep that as low as we can.
Sometimes it just can't be helped.
And so, and I'll just remind the board, we pay, and this will be a factor going forward as well for our workers' comp. The state covers the state workers' comp. So anybody that's paid out of state funds, which we have a lot of people paid out of state funds, the state covers it. So the Board of Education is required to cover people employed out of local or federal funds. Well, those additional federal funds are more people employed out of federal funds, so it can have an effect on our workers' comp as well, because the amount of payroll that we have affects what our premium is as well.
Thank you.
Board members, this comes to you as an action item tonight. The staff has presented to you the recommendation for our insurance providers for 21-22. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion, we accept it.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Williams as presented.
Second.
Who's the second? I'm sorry.
Ms. Williams?
Anderson.
Got you, thank you.
Ms. Williams.
All those.
We're on TV. That's right.
Dr. William, do that.
Beg pardon?
Do the vote, please.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Who made the motion? And who made the motion? Ms. Anderson. All right, who seconded? Ms. Williams. I'm quiet. Ms. Williams made it. Who seconded it?
Ms. Anderson?
Ms. Anderson. Okay. Is there any further discussion with anybody? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Keep going.
Okay, what, oh, you go on the agenda.
Closed session.
Okay, closed session. At this time, we will take a 5-minute break, and wait a minute before we do that.
Yes, before we go to closed session, I would like to ask a question. I know we've just gone through and did quite a few recommended actions to approve all of these items here under the financial section. And my question is, I hate to go back because I know there was discussions on this, and that is just getting back to the financial update and board travel, where basically there was nothing to make a recommendation or anything. You were just given an update on, and I think what was discussed was what had occurred as far as that study for 12K. And where did you say, and I want to make sure we agreed from that meeting that the funding for that 12K would come from what budget or where?
So what?
From operations.
What was just discussed was for it to come from Dr. Winborn's budget.
Operation
Because
budget.
it was a higher figure than what had been discussed. Because I think originally the discussion was around contracting the study.
Right.
Not an architectural, more detailed study.
Okay.
So originally, we were saying that it would come from that board travel, a portion of it made up by the difference somewhere. And then what was discussed at the table was that it would come from Dr. Winborn's budget, because that's where it's spin out of at the moment.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Just want to clarify.
I'm better now. Thank
Okay,
you.
it's all yours.
All right, now we'll take a motion to adjourn to closed session in accordance with North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11A6, A3.
So moved.
Got you. Ms. Anderson?
Second.
Do I have a second?
Second, over here.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're
All right, we're
Yeah, I was wondering what that is.
engaged. What is, oh, it's the sheriff.
All right, board members, we're in open session now. You have had certified and classified personnel presented to you, and it has been revised. And so I would entertain a motion to approve certified, classified personnel as revised in closed session.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion by Ms. LeBrecq. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Anderson. Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. Board members, what's been passed out to you is a proposed process for executive level contracts. If you remember correctly, last year, in 2020, we determined that our executive level staff, their proposed or any kind of increases were just kind of missed because it doesn't flow in the normal concept of the way we do things. So what is proposed here to you is how we could do that and kind of put it on a schedule in doing that. So in March, during the budget process, the Board of Education would determine a not exceed amount percentage for increases for the executive level contracts. So for example, the board would determine raises for the executive level would not exceed 3% that year, or 5%, or 10% that year, whatever the board decides in March. That gives Ms. Day and the finance team the opportunity to build that into our budget each year and be prepared for that. In June, the superintendent will complete their annual evaluation, and she would come back to a recommendation of any kind of disciplinary action and/or increases for individual staff in closed session. And then by June 30th, the Board of Education would deliberate and take action on any salary increases that would become effective July 1st. That would be the proposal moving forward after this year. This year, it would almost basically be the same. We've missed the part to build it into the budget per se, but Dr. McLean will bring recommendations for Ms. Day. We have just approved Dr. Winborn, but there'll be more information following that later. But basically, we would kind of do that at the end of June this year, and then we would have the superintendent's evaluation in August of this year. Just want to open up the floor to that. What kind of questions do you have, suggestions? This is kind of coming as a way to formalize what we've done, just so that we can expect it year after year. By all means, if you think of a better way, we can definitely change this, but I'd like to go ahead and get this in place tonight, or at the very least, to be able to act on it at our next board meeting later on this month. Questions or comments or?
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
Does her contract, I can't remember, does Dr. McLean's contract require us to make these decisions, or does she have the flexibility to do that herself?
Dr. McLean, if someone's salary is changing, it should come to the board.
Dr. McLean, is this something that, is this something that you feel strongly about?
It's fine with me. It is, it's okay.
Any other comments or questions about it?
Considering the fact that she has to evaluate all these people individually, I would think she should have an opinion, an opportunity to say yes or no, whether she wants to keep them, whether she wants to pay them more or whatever.
And I think that's built into it, yes, sir, absolutely. I think kind of what we were trying to get ahead of is to allow the finance team to be able to budget for that. And we've never been able to do that before.
Because it's usually later, or?
Well, because what ends up happening is, because it's after the budget's kind of been presented to us. Does that kind of answer what you're asking, or is that?
Well, kind of. My thinking is, if this happens in March, a lot could happen between then and June, the last of June. But I guess we could always change our mind if the case was made as to why we should.
So we would be just, if I'm understanding this, making a decision on what the parameters of any raises would be, but not who gets what or what happens in June. That's a separate matter table.
And I think to go along with what Mr. P says, if Dr. McLean feels strongly about something, then we just go outside the budget at that point.
Okay.
But I think the mechanism needs to be put in place, because if not, we're kind of flying blind, and really 10% of an executive level contract can be a chunk of a budget. Do you want to act on this tonight? Do you want to think about it and us come back and talk about it? I know this is the first time you're seeing it, so.
But this is pretty much for planning purposes.
Yes, sir. Okay. So somebody want to make that into a motion, or do you just want to go by consensus, or? I would feel better with a motion, because then.
I
that
make
way
a
it's
motion.
recorded. Okay. Motion by Dr. Houlihan to accept this. Is there a second? Who was the second? Mr. Peace. All right. Is there further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Thank you. Madam Superintendent, do you have anything further?
No, sir, except to thank our technology team for tonight's meeting, and to thank our operations team for tonight's setup and the furniture we are sitting in. They have worked very hard to make certain we were upgrading this facility to be able to meet the new standards for this place being used. So our students have used this as their testing site, this room and this furniture, and it's easy to transform into boardroom. So it's very interchangeable. So I'm most pleased for our operations department and what has occurred. I'd also like to go back to the technology team for all the videotaping and live streaming they did for our graduation ceremonies. Over the course of the weekend, they did an exceptional job, and I've received lots of comments, positive comments. So kudos to them this evening. And
I'd like to thank Ms. Shea for her work. I'm not certain she's going to be with us the end of the month for that meeting, but thank you, dear. Everything has been wonderful, and she's going to go off and have a little fun for a couple of weeks and then come back to visit with us. So I just want to thank you publicly, dear.
Yes, ma'am. Board members, anything further from you? All right, if you do notice the upcoming events there on the calendar, also don't forget this Thursday, June 9th, 2 o'clock in the Cobb Center at the Masonic Home. And we will be working probably about 2 to 4. That'll give us a good 2 hours to work there, and be prepared that will only be around consolidation and restructuring. So if there is nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion by Dr. McKnight. Do we have a second?
Second.
Is that Ms. Williams?
Mr. Rich, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Did you all vote to approve the personnel report?
We did, yes, sir,
Okay.
as revised.
All right, thank you.
And Eva can get with you about the revision.
Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, motion by Dr. McKnight, a second by Ms. Williams. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, we're adjourned at 10:13.